An exhausted salaryman snaps his wristwatch open, realizing it's way past time, and his brutal workday is finally over. He looks back on his 2 years in that black company, where the overtime never ends and the pay is always zero. A sudden wave of dizziness slams into him, and it screams one thing: his burnout has reached total, no more left in his body. He lets out a tired sigh and trudges through the dark city streets, alone, heading for home. He remembers this exact kind of night, the one unforgettable evening when he first crossed paths with his beloved companion. Staring up at that massive apartment building, he felt the clock start screaming in his head. He had to get home fast. A nameplate on his door snaps the truth into place: Haruka Takumi. With heavy, exhausted hands, he fumbles for his keys, desperate to slam the final door on this brutal, long day. The lock clicks as it turns, and the moment that sound hits, you know he's here for the one waiting inside. He yells that he's back, just as frantic paw scratches claw out from behind an inner door. He tells his energetic friend, "Hold up, just a sec," then promises he'll fling that door open right away. He yanks off his dress shoes at last, and kicks aside the final chains of that suffocating job. An impossibly adorable, fluffy white dog rockets up on its whole body, wiggling like crazy with pure joy. His exhaustion fades, and a warm smile takes over as he leans in and asks his little companion, "So, have you been good?" He breaks out the sweetest surprise, his dog's favorite sausage, and hauls it home just for that furry little guy. He drops to one knee beside Leo and watches his dog beam as he devours the special gift. He laughs at how a random whim to name his dog Leo turned into one of his most cherished memories. Right as Leo finishes his treat, Takumi snaps and decides it's finally his turn, time for his small, sad little bento dinner. A brutal wave of vertigo crashes over him out of nowhere. His vision goes fuzzy the moment Leo tightens up, worry written all over his face. He shoots his hand out to steady himself, and a chilling thought hits him: was that brutal shaking an earthquake? He jolts in sickening realization. This isn't the room shaking, it's him, trembling out of control. Everything flips as he crumples to the ground. Leo's frantic barks fade fast while his eyes roll shut and consciousness slips away. He jolts awake under a blanket of treetops, half awake, but instantly catching Leo's barking like it's calling his name. He blinked at the sky and realized he wasn't on his apartment floor at all. He was sprawled on a cushion of soft, unfamiliar grass. He jolts upright and shouts for Leo, completely stunned by the endless wilderness and those distant mountains looming in the haze. A huge white muzzle snaps into view just inches from his face, freezing him so hard he can't even breathe. He jerks back in pure terror, blurting out frantic confusion at the massive, unfamiliar monster. A colossal white wolf looms over him, and all he can manage is a stuttering W-wolf, because disbelief hits him like a punch. He grabs at denial, telling himself this has to be a dream, because a wolf that impossibly huge couldn't possibly be real. The giant wolf dips its head, and its nose comes down so close that he can feel every hot breath hitting his skin. He shuts his eyes tight, shaking with dread, 100% sure something's about to tear him apart and swallow him whole. Instead of sharp teeth, his huge, wet tongue lashes his cheek in a sloppy, affectionate lick. He snaps his eyes open, stunned speechless as the soft whimper fills the air and that gentle touch somehow breaks him. In the mirror of his own wide eye, he catches the wolf's familiar, gentle look. A fragile hope flares in his chest as he raises a shaky finger, pleading, "Could you be my Leo?" He drinks in the sight of the wolf's deadly paws, now strapped with long, razor-sharp claws. He just stares, awestruck by that creature's thick coat of pure, shimmering white fur. The wolf locks eyes with him, and those same gentle, adoring orbs he's always known shine back like they've never changed. He scratches the wolf's fur and muses that even though Leo's male, he's turned out ridiculously handsome. He sits next to the colossal creature, then bursts into laughter, bragging to his companion about how insanely huge he's become. He leans back and starts unraveling a brand new mystery, clutching the memory of his dog's eerie, almost human-like intelligence. He remembers how Leo always caught every word like it was crystal clear. He can't stop wondering, are these wild growth things just another freaky twist from the dream he's trapped inside? He flashes a playful wink and asks the wolf, right to its face, if it understood what he just said about scoring a ride. He decides to scout the area first, and only then dares to hop on his newly gigantic friend. He perches on Leo's broad shoulders as the great wolf plunges deeper into the forest. After a while, he finally dismounts, his office shoes sinking into the soft, grassy earth like it's welcoming him back. He strides right beside his gigantic companion, and the towering trees swallow them both, because that creature's size makes him look tiny. He spins around and realizes they're trapped in a primordial forest that stretches forever, with no end in sight. Ancient tree trunks and tangled branches choke the sky, plunging everything into a dim, eerie green glow. From above, this dude and his massive wolf look tiny, just two dots lost in a wild, endless wilderness that stretches forever. A flash of worry hits his face as he realizes just how real and deadly their situation is. His throat burns dry and he blurts to Leo, "Yo, tell me there's a river nearby, please." Leo instantly gets it, whips around and guides him with total purpose down a steep, wooded slope. He's bursting with joy as Leo guides him to a glittering river, absolutely gushing about how incredible his companion is. Relief washed over his face as gratitude flooded him, like that cool water just saved his life. He drops to his knees by the jagged shore, desperate to finally drown in relief and quench that brutal thirst. He cupped that crystal-clear water in his hands and drank it down in big, desperate gulps, pure, overwhelming relief hitting like a wave. He drops down by the riverbank to catch his breath, while Leo happily pans for gold right beside him. Leo cradles his huge head in his lap, eyes soft as he remembers the days when he could fit his whole body in someone's arms. He bursts into laughter, says even Leo's head feels heavy now, then throws in a quick apology for teasing that girl. He cranes his neck toward the towering trees, wondering what comes next, how on earth they'll survive now. He rests his palm on Leo's head, trying to wrap his mind around the fact that they're trapped in some strange, unknown forest. He slaps his hands over his face in pure despair and finally admits to himself he's got zero survival skills whatsoever. Leaning into Leo's warm, furry side, he grabs a rare bead of calm and just breathes in that fresh air. Sunlight glittered on the clear water, and he honestly couldn't remember when he last felt this peacefully free. He rushes to Leo and throws himself into an apology, admitting he'd always been buried in work, so he never showed up as the kind of owner he promised to be. He falls into a hush, wearing a dark, heavy expression as he replays his past in his mind. Leo's body snaps rigid, and a low, ruthless growl rolls up from deep in his chest. When Leo's hackles shoot up, Takumi bolts upright and blurts, "What's wrong? What happened?" to his partner. He locks onto Leo's intense stare and suddenly feels it. Something is slipping through the trees. A hulking pigman, 2 legs, all menace, charges into the clearing and stomps so hard it makes the ground tremble. He freezes in disbelief as Leo snarls defensively at the 2-legged pig strutting right in front of him. His eyes go wide with pure shock, and his mind scrambles to understand the monstrous thing staring back at him. A memory from his old life snaps into focus. He finally recognizes the creature, just like the ones from those video games. As the orc lifts its weapon, it roars the name of the blade and screams for Leo, like everything's gone horribly wrong. Leo snaps into motion, turning into a white streak of righteous fury as he charges the monster without even a second to hesitate. After the fight, Leo sinks back with a satisfied grin, gnawing on the orc's severed, bandaged arm like it's his victory snack. With wide-eyed horror and pure fascination, Takumi blurts to his companion, "Wait, are you seriously about to eat that?" Leo grins and thrusts the gruesome trophy into his hands like he's cheering, "Come on, share in the spoils with me." Takumi jolts back, his face twisting between disgust and this totally baffled kind of amusement. With a tired, strained grin, he realizes this is real, and he has no choice but to accept it. Later, chunk after chunk of orc meat hits the blazing campfire, sizzling and popping like it can't wait to be devoured. Leo waits for his food with bated breath, and the second it's in sight, he wags his tail so hard it feels like flowers are bursting up around him. As Takumi slides over a freshly cooked skewer, Leo's eyes light up, and the drool practically starts running before he even bites. Takumi takes a shaky, deep breath, then shoves his first bite of the roasted monster meat into his mouth. Leo stares him down, hanging on every second, desperate to hear what his owner decides about their very first meal together. His eyes snap wide with shock when he takes a bite and realizes the meat is ridiculously good, tasting exactly like pork. Their hunger finally gone, they stare up at the bright sky, already plotting the next move like it's about to happen. He leans in and grills his companion for escape plans, then brushes the dust from his trousers like he's about to break out any second. He snaps himself back in the moment, cheeks warming, and admits with a sheepish grin that Leo probably has no clue. He goes with a tried-and-true survival plan and tells everyone to stick with the river, riding it downstream. As they stride along the riverbank, he can't miss it. Leo is in a ridiculously good mood. He abruptly halts, head cocked, as some faint, unfamiliar sound slips into his ears. His eyes shoot open as he hears it again. This time the sound hits harder, sharper, and crystal clear. He snaps to it that voice is human, and he shoves Leo to move faster, praying this is their way out. They tear through the forest, bolts of chaos blasting through the trees as they sprint straight for the sound. He locks onto the screams. There's a young woman backed into a corner, trapped as another orc howls for help. The blonde-haired woman is trapped in pure terror. Her screams rip through the air as the monster towers over her. When Takumi spots an orc charging straight at them, he blurts his companion's name and snaps the air with pure alarm. In a blink of blinding white fur, Leo lunges in and clamps the monster's arm in his thunderous jaws. The orc gets slammed backward, and Klee, still on the ground, stares in stunned disbelief. Takumi flashes Leo a thumbs up and grins, telling him he absolutely nailed it. He rushes to Klee's side, breathless, demanding to know if she's okay. She nods and says she's fine. She stares up at her rescuer, eyes wide with shock, but gratitude hits her like a wave. Takumi freezes for a second, completely thrown off by her beauty, and his face flares red as Leo shoots him a sideways glance. She asks, is something wrong, and he blurts out an apology, confessing he got completely swept up by her. She smiles, thanks him for everything, and then leans in. So, is the silver Fenrir you're familiar? Those bizarre words, familiar and silver Fenrir, slam into Takumi and Leo and leave them utterly baffled. Takumi finally clocks it. Monster and familiar aren't real-life horrors to him yet. They're just words he's only ever seen in his video games. Klee's got no clue what a monster or a familiar even is, and that ignorance is terrifying. He leaned in and demanded she tell him what a silver Fenrir really was. With a bright grin, he confirms, no doubt at all, that his partner is the legendary creature. Klee wrestles with the impossible truth, trying to force it to match the legend she's always believed. She can barely believe it. He's actually tamed that silver Fenrir. They say it's the mightiest monster out there, one that never bends its will to humans, not even once. Takumi grins and taunts his proud wolf, daring him, so tell me, are you really the strongest? Cleo starts spinning tales about the Fenrir, how it blitzes with insane speed, how its breath turns to fire, and how its claws can tear through anything. She keeps talking, and every word paints its deadly fangs, an unstoppable, absolute power. She tells you the noble symbol isn't just for show, it's stamped right on the royal crest. She stares at him, eyes blazing wide with pure awe. Takumi stands tall and declares with zero doubt that this is Leo, his partner, no matter what the legends claim. She can't believe it, but he keeps telling her, I'm just an ordinary person. Cleo breaks into a grin, still shaking her head like she can't believe it. She insists only the strongest soul could ever earn a bond with a silver Fenrir. She's absolutely convinced he's a big-name legend, the kind everyone knows. He shuts down her assumption on the spot and demands her name. He slaps a hand to his chest and introduces himself, Haruka Takumi. She's never even heard his name, and he laughs it off like, see, that's proof I'm not famous. Leo locks eyes on a butterfly, and it instantly drags Takumi back to his own laps and the rules he swears he knows by heart. He grins as it hits him. Somehow he never asked for her name. She takes his apology on the chin, admits she was rude too, and still doesn't bother introducing herself. She flashes a flawless curtsy and brands herself as Cleo Rebel right there, like it's a declaration. She thanks him again, gripping the moment like it's life or death after he hauled her out of real danger. Takumi gets hit all over again by her grace and that breathtaking beauty. He stammers out her name, and she smiles warmly and tells him to call her Cleo. He nods in agreement and tells her to call him Takumi, so she does, and she agrees without hesitation. He demanded to know why she was deep in the forest, and she snapped back that she was hunting medicinal herbs. An orc showed up and she wide-eyed, spoke up as her terrified horse bolted and vanished into the night. Then she snaps the question at him, why is he really here? He exhales, utterly stuck, because he can't even find the words to explain this impossible situation. He tells her he didn't choose any of this, he just woke up in this very forest. Ever since then, he and Leo have been drifting around with no clue what they're doing. Klee just leans in, eyes locked on him, and listens to the wild story like it's about to change everything. She's stunned. How did he just pop into existence? He shrugs and admits, I don't know either. She reels over their shared nightmare, two of them spiraling deeper in the woods, completely lost. She swallows her nerves and cautiously talks to him, right on the edge of asking for a favor. She asks if he'll help her, and he snaps back a quick, yes, ready to jump in without hesitation. Her face lights up with a brilliant smile, pure gratitude pouring out of her. The ancient forest hangs overhead like a living wall, and through its thick, dense canopy, you can finally see patches of sky. They kick off their hunt for the herb, pushing through a twisting riverbank path. He can't help but wonder, are those plants around him hiding the ramogi they're hunting? Takumi drops to one knee in the tall grass, leaning in close as he studies the wild plants like he's hunting for clues. Klee begged for his help, and her craving for that herb drowned out every shred of fear. She leaned in and told me the ramogi is a fever-killing herb that thrives right along the riverbank. They've torn through search after search for ages, and still nothing. Takumi groans and stretches, his whole body screaming from that brutal walk. They squeeze in a quick welcome break right at the water's edge. Exhaustion crashes over him as he drops to the ground, basically begging for a breather before they push on. The moment his palm kisses the ground, a miracle sprouts up, right there, small and bright, like it was always meant to. A tiny plant shoots up at an impossible pace, right before his wide-eyed amazement. In just a blink of an eye, that tiny sprout explodes into a full-sized herb. He freezes, staring at the plant like it just spawned out of thin air, utterly stunned. He spots the ramogi, and the crazy part is, it looks like it just sprouted out of nothing. He blurts out to Klee with pure excitement, insisting he finally found it. He jabs a finger at the plant and declares, "This is the one we've been hunting for." Takumi, Klee, and Leo just stand there, stunned together, their amazement locked in sync. Klee nods and confirms it, "Ramogi, it's real," and the second she says it, relief hits him like a wave because they finally tracked it down. She thanks him again and again, her voice blazing with pure, heartfelt gratitude. She gently plucks that precious life-saving herb from the ground, like it's the only thing that could save them. She grips it with all her strength, and at last, her mission is finally over. Pure joy and total relief flood her face all at once. She shoots him a grateful smile one more time, and he tells her he's just happy he could help her out. Now all they've got to do is head back, but she's crushed because her horse is gone for good. Leo lets out a low growl that snaps Takumi's attention straight to him. The massive white wolf stomps forward with ruthless, deliberate control. He smoothly drops to the ground and opens up his back like, "Hop on, I'll get you there." Takumi asked, "Are you offering to carry us?" And Leo barked loud and clear, "Yes." He races the offer over to that wide-eyed Clear, and you can see pure shock hit her all at once. Klee gulps hard, her expression caught between pure awe and sharp, stomach-tight trepidation. She formally accepts Leo-sama's offer, and Leo-sama snaps back with a sharp bark. They clung tight as they rode on Leo's back, his roaring strength legs blasting them forward in a blur. Their hair whips in the wind as they rocket through the forest. Takumi blurts out, "Does Leo even know where we're headed?" They burst out of the thick forest and into a massive, open clearing. Leo gallops full speed across a giant stretch of rolling hills while Klee barks out directions. Takumi stares out at this strange, sprawling expanse like he's seeing a whole new world for the first time. No matter where you look, it's nothing but endless open land stretching out forever. He stops dead and realizes there's no way a place like this could ever exist in Japan. He finally swallows the truth, and just like that, he's standing in a brand new world. He stares at the impossible world he's trapped in, watching them write it all down. Right as they near that massive gate, Klee grabs him and begs him to make Leo stop. They skid to a stop in front of a towering estate, guarded by armored sentries standing like living walls. A guard hears Klee shout in pure relief, "She's alive, she's safe." His relief flashes, and then slams into pure alarm when he spots that colossal wolf looming right in front of him. Klee keeps her cool and tells the guard to treat Takumi like an important guest. With pure ease, they slip off Leo's massive back like it's nothing. Takumi's feet hit the ground of this wild new place, and the whole world feels unfamiliar. They stride through the freshly opened gates, and right there, this insane journey is just getting started. Massive wrought iron gates tear open with a thunderous metallic clang, like the whole world just snapped awake. Klee hurls a confident look at Takumi and pulls him forward toward the towering stone mansion right in front of them. Takumi stared, totally stunned by how massive it was, and he muttered, "This is unreal." An older man in a butler's uniform explodes through the doorway, frantically shouting for Lady Klee. Klee hurtles up the steps, shouting his name, Sebastian, like she can't wait another second. The butler lets out a shaky breath of pure relief, grateful she's safe, and not a single scratch touches her. Klee grabbed him by the urgency in her voice and demanded to know how Tilla was doing. Sebastian tells them straight up, Tilla's still trapped in bed, burning with a brutal high fever. That hits Takumi like a gut punch. Klee's family member has to be fighting something really terrible. Sebastian pushes on, admitting they've got zero effective medicine for her condition. Klee nods and admits that's exactly why she dared to slip into the forest all by herself. She tells the story of how an orc crashed into her, then Takumi swooped in and saved her just in time. Sebastian's jaw drops when he hears she was attacked by an orc. He whips around to Takumi and drops a deep, formal bow, thanking him like it means everything. He steps forward and declares, "I'm Sebastian, the butler of the Revolt family household." Takumi shoots down the idea that he did all that much, then points the spotlight straight at Leo instead. Sebastian's sharp, professional stare snaps onto the huge wolf, and his eyes blow wide with shock. He whispers in total disbelief, and the moment he sees it, he realizes it's the same creature he already knows. He's stuck trying to understand it, his mind racing as he wonders, could this really be the same familiar he thinks he knows? Cleo pressed her hand into Leo's fur, and Bam confirmed every one of his doubts. She tells me she saw Leo Sama slice into an orc with his claws, ripping it apart like it was nothing. She says, full of confidence, that he's a silver Fenrir. Sebastian's jaw drops. He can't wrap his head around the fact that he's looking at a real, breathing legend. He whispers that the silver Fenrir isn't just a relic, it's the unbreakable emblem of their nation. They say it's a legendary monster, one that won't ever bend the knee to humans. Takumi makes it crystal clear, Leo isn't his subordinate, he's his partner. He admits he just stumbled on Leo, abandoned, right there a few years back. Sebastian is left totally speechless, trying to wrap his head around the idea of tracking down a silver Fenrir. Klee blurts out that silver Fenrirs adore their families, so spotting even a single one on its own, that's unheard of. Takumi's eyes widen when he realizes something brand new about his companion. Sebastian's sharp eyes pinned Takumi in place, like he was trying to figure out exactly what kind of person he really was. Leo glanced back at the butler, wearing a soft smile and a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Klee decides they'll dig into Takumi's story in full detail later. She snaps the talk back to Tilla and declares that Takumi just uncovered the Ramogi herb. Sebastian's jaw drops again as he lifts that precious herb from her hands with pure, reverent care. Before touching a single drop of medicine, he decides to treat their guest like they truly deserve, first. He whips around to Takumi, fired up to guide him straight into the grand estate. He greets him with full respect, calls him Takumi Samem, and snaps his hand forward like, "Come on, follow me." Cleo leans in and hypes him up. She tells him they've got to go inside. Takumi's chest tightens as he realizes he's never felt welcome in a place this grand before. The moment he steps into the grand hall, a breathtaking sight crashes over him like a wave. A whole legion of maids and footmen stands in perfect formation, lined up like they're ready to spring into action. They all drop into a perfectly timed bow, greeting their lady with a crisp, formal welcome as she returns. Takumi's jaw drops as he stares in disbelief, eyes bulging at the massive, jaw-unleashing reception he's getting. He quietly clocks the insane number of staff packed into the hall. He figures the receiving line has to be packed, at least 20 people waiting their turn. Klee thrusts the Ramogi into Sebastian's hands, trusting him to handle the preparation. She then introduces Takumi to the staff like a miracle, her benefactor, her savior. She commands everyone to handle him with absolute care and show him the respect he deserves. A brunette and a redhead maid step up side by side, ready to fuss over him. The brunette blazes, "I'm Layla," and the redhead follows right up with, "I'm Jurda." They both gush their gratitude to him nonstop, thanking him like there's no tomorrow for saving Lady Cleo. Flustered Takumi blurts out his thanks, stammers like crazy and tells them, with total sincerity, that it's a real pleasure to meet them. Jurda, the red-headed maid, can't hide her nerves. She grips her hands together so tight it looks like they might crack. Takumi, all tense and awkward, blurts out, "Can we just act normal with me?" The entrance hall is so lavish, it practically overwhelms your senses. He's left speechless, staring up at that massive staircase and every ornate detail like it's too beautiful to be real. He's like, "Sure, I've been swamped by the maids before, but this," and the sheer scale of it leaves him completely stunned. He can't stop staring. Everything around him screams pure luxury and dazzles him nonstop. Klee tells Takumi, "I'm heading to check on my sister, Tilla." She orders Layla and Jurda to make sure their guest never gets neglected. The two maids swore they'd give everything they had to serve him well. Klee glides up the grand staircase, her long hair trailing behind her like a banner catching the light. Takumi watches her leave, stunned by how kind she is, and his heart lingers on that thought. Then the maids usher Takumi and Leo along a dazzling, gold-bedazzled corridor like they're being escorted into a royal dream. Takumi blurts out, "Hey, Leo, is it cool if you stay in here with me?" Layla reassures him that the guest room is so big it'll more than fit them both. Jurda nods with blazing excitement and tells him, straight up, it'll all be fine. Takumi agrees on the spot, then leans in and tells them, all right, take the lead. They show up at a guest room so huge it dwarfs his entire apartment. The maids tell him to stay right there while they whip up some refreshments. They turn to each other and go, all right, what do we bring for Leo Sema to drink? Takumi almost slips into Japanese habit, ready to order water or milk without thinking. He snaps out of it fast, cheeks burning because he can't believe he just messed up. He swears it has to be his Japanese nature, because he's weirdly unassuming, like it's just how he's built. He drops into a comfy plush sofa and starts petting Leo's warm, silky fur like it's the best thing in the world. As long as Leo stays calm, he believes nothing bad can touch him. He stares into the chaos, realizing this whole surreal nightmare feels way too unreal, like he's trapped in a dream. Leo tilts his head up at him and lets out a sharp, questioning whine. Takumi can't believe it even for a dream. Leo's transformation is straight up unreal. A polite knock at the door snaps him out of his thoughts. Layla and Jurda, the two maids, rush back in with a steaming tea service. Layla gracefully pours Takumi a steaming cup of tea, and he takes it with genuine gratitude. Meanwhile, Jurda rushes up to Leo, clutching a huge bowl of water, her nerves screaming as she does. Takumi grins and tells Leo, drink that water right, no games. As Leo dips and laps at the water, Jurda screams and jerks backward in pure panic. That poor young maid is still shaking with pure terror every time the giant wolf looms near her. Takumi, crushed by guilt, fires off an apology for Leo's terrifying presence. Layla softly but firmly scolds Jurda for showing her fear in such an unprofessional way. She insists she isn't scolding him, and then she quickly reads the room. Leo's not hostile. She finds Leo totally adorable, watching him sip so softly that he never startles Jurda. Takumi lets out a warm, genuine laugh and fully agrees with her take. He adds that Leo's a total cutie, just like blushing Jurda. Jurda's mouth falls open in total shock, and she can barely whisper, you called me cute. That sudden compliment hits her like a wave. She freezes, then blushes hard, overwhelmed with pure joy. Layla smirks, making it crystal clear that Takumi is a total smooth talker. Just then, Klee and Sebastian burst back into the room. Takumi blurted out the moment right there, asking how her sister was doing. Klee tells everyone Tilla's condition hasn't changed a bit. She's still the same after heading into that forest. But now she's filled with hope, because they're getting ready to prepare the Ramogi medicine. Takumi tells them the Leo he once knew has blown up in size, way bigger than before. Klee points out that a giant silver Fenrir, totally normal. Takumi snaps back and explains that Leo used to be a tiny dog you could practically scoop up and hold in your hands. Klee leans in and asks if it's really true, and Takumi snaps back that he tracked down Leo, only to find him left behind and abandoned. He swears his size and shape aren't the same anymore, they've changed completely. He lays out his wild theory, and suddenly it hits. Leo must have transformed into a silver Fenrir. Klee's totally baffled. She's never seen anything like this transformation before. Takumi stalls, admitting it's brutally hard to put the rest of his story into words. Cleo listens as he finally drops his impossible secret, and the truth hits like a lightning bolt. He leans in and reveals this is a whole other world, where orcs aren't legends, they're real. Cleo quietly mouths his words again and again, like he's trying to make sense of the unbelievable bombshell he just heard. Takumi flashes a wry grin, like he gets why she can't believe it. He takes a steadying sip of tea, then dives right into the explanation. He can't stop thinking about those travelers to other worlds, because every time they come back with brand new powers. This is his big theory. Maybe it's the spark behind Leo's transformation. His little dog was handed a terrifying power, and it transformed him into a Fenrir. Takumi scratches Leo's head, and Leo's ear twitches like he can't help reacting. Klee freezes, her eyes widening as it all suddenly clicks into place. Sebastian whips around to Klee and demands her verdict on the story. Cleo flashes a warm smile and throws her trust straight into Takumi's hands. Sebastian takes in his lady's verdict with a sharp, knowing look, like he already understood it all along. Layla and Jurda, the maids, speak their own promise, trust in every word. Takumi's face lights up. He's hit with the shock of immediate, total acceptance. He throws Cleo a heartfelt thanks, relieved she actually believed his unbelievable story. With the truth finally exposed, Klee drops the drama and dives straight into the practical stuff. She offers him the villa and pulls him in, because she knows he has nowhere else to go. Takumi's eyes widen. He blurts out, "Are you really sure this is okay?" Klee lines in and insists. Tilla's going to want to thank him, and Klee knows it. Takumi gratefully accepts her offer, dipping his head in a deep, heartfelt bow. The maids get the order to rush and get a room ready for their brand new guest. Takumi fires off a question about Tilla's medicine, and when he hears it won't be ready until tomorrow, the waiting hits hard. Cleo told him that one tiny sprig she'd found was more than plenty. Leo nudges the leftover herbs aside, and Cleo can't help wondering if he's hungry. She orders the chefs to throw a full-on welcome party just for them. Takumi's completely flustered, practically insisting, "Seriously, we don't need a celebration like this." Klee leaned in and asked what Leo eats, and Takumi couldn't stop wondering, do sausages even exist in this place? Klee finally assures them, sending Takumi's shoulders dropping with pure, instant relief. He breaks into a grin and tells Leo that his all-time favorite treat just hit the menu. The huge wolf almost body slams him, bursting with pure, happy excitement. Amid all the chaos, Takumi stumbles, and the ramogi sprigs slip right out of his hands. He crouches low and snatches up the fallen medicinal herbs. He stares at them, and then it hits him. Everything suddenly feels wildly different. He thrusts the herbs into Klee's hands, and she just stares, totally baffled. They both stared in shock, as the fresh herbs had totally dried out. A brilliant spark hits Takumi, and he blurts out, "So, can we use them right now?" Klee clocks it instantly and sprints off to track down Sebastian. Takumi and Leo end up alone, staring at each other like, "Wait, what just happened?" Takumi softly pats Leo's shoulder, assuring him dinner's going to take a little longer. Night creeps in fast outside the grand parlor window, swallowing everything in shadow. Takumi and Leo hunker down in tense silence, just waiting for the news to finally hit. Klee and Sebastian burst back in, grinning from ear to ear. Tilla's been treated. Takumi bursts with relief, smiling through the joy because he finally knows she'll be safe and taken care of. Sebastian tells them he heard the ramogi dry out as it sank into Kumi's hand. He tells them the medicine portion had dried up too. Klee drops her theory, and suddenly it clicks. Takumi has to be the one with the gift. She leans in and says the gift isn't just nice, it's a rare present delivered straight from the gods. Sebastian leans in and says, "Back in our nation, we've still got records of every past gift holder. These powers can turn downright legendary, like forging blazing swords or unleashing unstoppable magic." Magic is brand new to Takumi, and it hits him like pure wonder, the kind that makes you stare in disbelief. Sebastian insists that magic can't dry plants at all. If it somehow does, then it's not a spell, it's a gift. Klee can't contain his excitement as he snaps this into place, linking it straight to his wild story of being ripped from another world. Sebastian blurts out, totally baffled, about this wildly strange, hyperspecific power. He can't help but wonder if this is only a piece of some bigger power. Klee can't wait. She pushes for magical tools so they can dig into the truth behind his power. Takumi's eyes widen. He can't believe stuff this useful actually exists, and then he nods, agreeing to the test. Klee calls out that dinner's finally ready and urges everyone to head out and dig in. Everyone's basically screaming the same truth. Yeah, we're starving. The story whisks them onto an outdoor terrace where the welcome meal is ready to kick off the night. A maid swoops in to clear the plates, and she can't stop talking about how insanely delicious it was. Sebastian vows he'll shove those compliments straight to the chef. Klee leans in and tells Takumi he can ask anything at all, no questions off limits. He gives her a quick thank you, then leans in and asks, "So, can you tell me about magic?" Klee's jaw drops at his question, because it looks simple, but it hits her like it's deeper than she expected. The staff's jaws drop when he blurts out that magic doesn't exist in his world. Sebastian, he blurts out in total disbelief, "Wait, tell me this is really true." Leo dozed peacefully, like none of the magical talk had the slightest chance of waking him. Takumi tells them the truth. Magic doesn't exist in his world. It's only something you hear about in stories. Cleo just stares, stunned by the shocking gap between their two worlds. She told Sebastian to step up and give their guests the full, proper explanation. The butler can't contain his excitement. He's finally getting a chance to step up and give a lecture. Takumi can't help but think Sebastian downright loves breaking things down and teaching him every little detail. Sebastian kicks things off and straight up explains that magic feeds on the mana inside every living thing. He makes it crystal clear, the real key is the incantation. He breaks down the 4 elements and explains how every extra bit of time turns a spell into something far more powerful. Takumi, curious, leans in and blurts out, "All right, what's the simplest magic incantation there is?" Sebastian stops dead for a split second, weighing the question like it might bite. He starts chanting the fire elemental candle, and a blazing flame erupts right in front of him. He breaks it down. It's that everyday spell people use to light up stuff in their homes. Takumi stares in awe, thinking, this is straight-up magic, like a lighter with powers. Sebastian realizes one brutal truth mid-fight. Those longer chants turn into a dangerous weakness. The instant battle gets loud. Takumi and Cleo both shot the same conclusion. Going slow in a fight would get them crushed. Sebastian spills the truth. This problem isn't solved with chants. It's cracked with chantless magic. Takumi keeps blurting out that strange word, and his curiosity spikes so hard it feels like it's buzzing in his head. The parlor door swings wide, and a maid politely calls out that a visitor has arrived. A tiny girl crashes into the room, sobbing and screaming for her sister. A sudden burst of intrusion rips into the scene, startling big, gentle Leo like nothing else. Clea is completely stunned when her little sister launches herself into her arms. The whole party stares in shock as the visitor shows up out of nowhere. The girl lights up with a grin, then introduces herself, Tilla, the younger sister. Clea asks if she's okay, and Tilla beams, insisting she's totally fine now. A joyful scream from the big sister suddenly bursts across the terrace. A young girl barrels in and cuts their conversation short, and Clea blurts out an apology to Takumi. He reassures her, telling her it's totally fine, and he can't help but smile, seeing how good she's doing. Tilla gazes up at Clea, her eyes sparkling with pure, starstruck adoration. Takumi stares at the lively kid, his mind racing as he wonders who she could possibly be. Clea leans in and tells everyone this is their guest, the same hero who ripped her out of an orc's clutches. She adds that he didn't just track it down, he found the medicine that finally cured Tilla's illness. Tilla's jaw drops in pure disbelief as she hears about his heroic deeds. Clea gently nudges her sister and tells her she needs to rest the right way after everything she went through. Tilla blurted out an apology for sleeping that long, then smiled like she'd finally woken up for real. She felt way better now. Clea breaks into a warm smile and playfully scolds her little sister, teasing her nonstop energy like it's a sweet little fire. Takumi steps up formally and introduces himself, Haruka Takumi, then leans in and tells her, "Call me Takumi." Tilla grinned and introduced herself as Tilla Revolt, then joyfully blurted out a yes. Her gaze snaps to the magnificent creature sitting there, perfectly calm, right beside Takumi. Wow, she blurts out, practically vibrating with excitement as she points at the huge white dog, and Cleo jumps in to tell you he's a silver Fenrir, the legendary creature. Takumi steps in and softly corrects her. "It's Leo," he says, and he's her partner. With a warm grin, he says Leo absolutely loves messing around with kids. His eyes light up the second she whips around to her sister, pleading, "Can I pet him?" Clea nods in agreement, fully trusting Takumi's word that the great beast is actually gentle. Tilla creeps closer, eyes locked on Leo's massive paw, those sharp claws ready to strike. Leo dips his head and plants a soft, delighted lick on the girl's cheek. Tio bursts into wild giggles, and somehow that giant wolf doesn't even scare him. She flings her arms around Leo's giant neck and chants, "Leo-sama." With a glowing smile, she throws her arms around the great beast and thanks Takumi again and again. Cleo watches them and blurts to Takumi, "I'm just so happy to see Tilla smiling again." She says she has to thank both him and Leo-sama for the happiness they've given her. Tilla, swallowed up in pure joy, keeps cuddling her brand new friend like it's the best moment of her life. That evening, the maid Layla tiptoed into Takumi's room and wished him a sweet good night. Completely drained from everything that happened that day, he flops onto the plush bed like all his strength just vanished. He fixes his eyes on the ornate ceiling, and his mind keeps replaying the impossible chain of events. He glances over, and there's Leo, curled up on the rug like a little ball of trouble, already dead asleep. He can't stop thinking about how worn out his loyal partner must be after everything they've been through. He sinks back in relief, finally admitting that this wild dream, now it's his real life. He can't help but think this has to be a whole other world, and the fear and excitement hit him at the same time, leaving his heart pounding. Later on, he jolts awake to Leo's soft, steady rhythm of barking. He snaps awake at his partner's voice and, half delirious, blurts out, "Is it morning already?" Leo mumbles into his pillow, begging, "Let me sleep a little longer, okay?" A soft, sweet female voice giggles at him and teases that he's totally hopeless when it comes to mornings. His eyes snap open, and there's Clea standing by the bed, while Tilla peeks out from behind her like she's been hiding there the whole time. Cleoson shot upright in bed with a jolt, cheeks burning as he got caught fast asleep. Just like that, he burst out. She flashes him a bright good morning and asks, right to his face, if he actually slept well. He shoots back the greeting, grumbling that she should have woken him up way earlier. She calls out breakfast is ready and urges him to come join them. Right as Cleo gets ready to bolt, Tilla grabs on tight and demands to stay with Liasama. Takumi grins as he sees how wildly attached Tilla has become to his partner. Tilla jabs back at her sister with a grin, swearing up and down that she's old enough to watch Leo now. Clea and Tilla squeeze in a sweet, light-hearted moment together, then leave him to get ready. The door slams shut and Takumi freezes because he just realized he has 0 clean clothes to wear. He's worried his clothes might stink, but the bright smiles on Leo's face say everything's totally fine. He rubs his chin and feels the rough, scratchy stubble of a beard starting to grow in. Later, he realizes he'll have to track down Sebastian and ask for a razor. He realizes he's running late, yanks his tie into place, and barrels toward the dining hall. He shoots an urgent apology to the maids who have been waiting, trying to make it up for every second he kept them on hold. Sebastian greets him with perfect formality, and Takumi fires back a polite good morning to the butler. Plopped at the grand table, Clea declares, "All right, let's start the meal." Every single one of them digs into that jaw-dropping breakfast, spread like it's the best thing that ever happened to their day. Leo grins and dives into his own specially prepared bowl of sausages, chomping like it's the best thing ever. Done with his meal, Takumi shoots a look and grabs Sebastian's attention. He swallowed his pride and asked, "Can I get a fresh set of clothes and a shave, please?" Sebastian bowed with that grin and promised he'd have everything brought to his room in no time. Tilla shoves the last bite down, grins at Leo and declares, "I'm ready to play." Takumi spots that Leo's already down with breakfast, and he's itching to get the game going. He leans over and asks Clea if it's okay for both of them to play together. Tilla leaps up in pure joy as Cleo finally agrees, then tells her to head straight to the back garden. Takumi grabs Clea and begs her to keep an eye on Leo while he sprints back to his room. Clea asks Leo if he'll be okay without Takumi, and the wolf barks back with fearless confidence. Takumi strides down the long, lavish corridor, heading straight for his room. He barges in and spots Layla already waiting, clutching every item he asked for. She tells him everything, finally set, and he lights up with a quick, grateful thanks. She slides an elegant case into his hands, revealing a razor inside. Layla drew her bow, looked him in the eye, and told him to call anytime he needed something before she slipped out the door. All alone, Takumi stares at the strange new tool in his hands, his mind racing as he wonders, can I really use this to shave? He shuts his eyes tight, bracing himself for the fragile task waiting just ahead. With a steady hand, he presses the razor's edge to his skin and starts the shave. He drags that unfamiliar razor in a slow, steady stroke, like he's trying to tame the blade with every careful pass. He finally wipes away the little nicks he picked up from that fresh, inexperienced start. He winces a little at the sting, then gives himself a quick check like, okay, now I actually feel good and look way more presentable. Outside, Tilla spots Leo and calls him over, waving him to come play. Clea locks eyes on the freshly groomed Takumi and blurts out that he looks like a whole new person. He strides into the garden, freshly clean-shaven, rocking a sharp vest like he owns the place. Clea leans in and praises him, telling him the new clothes fit him perfectly. He whips around to Sebastian and fires off a heartfelt thanks, praising his flawless taste and spotless service. The butler flashes a warm smile and tells him, I'm at your service anytime you need me. They watch Tilla perform, and Sebastian couldn't help but light up. Seeing her this amazing is exactly the kind of joy you want to witness. Takumi credits Clea for her fearless find, and the moment he says it, Sebastian shudders like the truth hit a nerve. Cleo swore she'd be way more careful from now on. Never again would she put them through that kind of worry. Takumi waves it off with a playful smile, but Sebastian won't budge. He insists he has to let it go for good. Sebastian nudges Takumi to give her a little scolding, but Takumi can't stop laughing. He whips around to Clean's, and her sincere vibe hits him like a sweet, irresistible kind of cute. Clea goes silent, cheeks burning hot as she finally clocks what he just said. Takumi asks if she's okay, and she blurts that she's fine, totally flustered. The cover blasts with confident Takumi standing right beside the magnificent Leo. The chapter kicks off with Clea snuggling up with her little sister, Tilla, and reading her a bedtime story. At the villa's gate, Sebastian sends Lady Klee and Takumi-sama off with a heartfelt wish for a safe journey. Sebastian tightens his grip on the reins and declares, loud and clear, that they're finally setting off. The carriage door slams shut with a deep, satisfying thud. They sped off toward the town of Rakdos, hunting down every last supply Takumi needed. Inside the carriage, Klee leans in and tells Takumi to stop stressing about the cost. Still reeling from her generosity, Takumi drops his head, bows deeply, and thanks her with all his heart. As their carriage rumbled forward, Takumi leaned to the window and stared out, lost in deep thought. He whipped around to face Klee, and suddenly he remembered their talk about that mysterious gift power. He blurted out that maybe, just maybe, the folks in town could help him figure out what his strange power really was. Sebastian promised, once we're done with our shopping, we'll investigate this, and hit that plan like a lock clicking shut. Cleo flashed a grin of agreement, and Takumi immediately knew this was it, the plan was locked in. Klee fell silent, eyes narrowing as she tried to crack the real truth behind these incredible powers. Sebastian gazed out at the rushing scenery, his mind tangled in the mystery behind those gifts. He started to explain that gifts can power you up with all kinds of abilities, but nobody knows where they truly come from. He warned that the awakening can strike out of nowhere, any time in a person's life. Clea snapped her gaze to Takumi, her face dead serious as she leaned in and spoke straight to him. She said the real power isn't what you have, it's how you choose to use it. Takumi didn't even have to raise his voice. He just watched her calmly nod along, completely convinced by her deep, undeniable wisdom. Right then, the massive, walled town of Rakdos rose up ahead of them like a fortress. At the gate, Takumi quietly calmed Leo, so softly that even the guard nearby couldn't believe what he just saw. They burst through the massive stone entrance and rolled straight into the heart of the town. Sebastian declared he'd take care of the carriage and demanded they hold tight while he went to handle it. Takumi paused to soak in the sights and sounds of this brand new town, like every corner was daring him to explore. The moment he stepped out, the bustling streets hit him like a wave of pure, electric energy. Cleopatra leaned in and demanded to know what he truly thought of the town of Rakdos. He clocked the sheer crush of people, and Klee nodded without hesitation. She laid it out plainly. The town sits in the perfect spot, and that's why it never stops buzzing as a non-stop main road. Takumi couldn't stop himself. Why were every single traveler being funneled through this one cursed town? A jolt shot through him as he realized this forest was exactly where he'd first opened his eyes. A clean little map laid it all out, showing how the train funneled every safe route straight through Rakdos. Sebastian came back with a grin and shouted that the wait was over. Now it was time to hit the stores and start shopping. The crew pushed through the bustling cobblestone street, weaving through the crowd as they barreled toward their next move. Before they even realized it, they burst through the way to a lively, sprawling marketplace entrance. Sebastian flashed a proud grin and declared that this was the finest market in all of Rakdos. He declared they were grabbing food for the mansion, and Leo's ears shot up like radar. Leo's eyes snapped to the dazzling stall, glistening sausages swinging there like they were begging to be eaten. The giant wolf surged ahead, yanking a struggling Takumi in its wake. Leo let out a heartbreaking whine as Takumi yanked him back and kept him from breaking free. Cleo burst into laughter, teasing Leo's absolutely wild obsession with sausages. She promised Leo a feast packed with his favorite treat, and the moment she said it, his face lit up like pure joy. Sebastian snapped them into motion and guided them straight to the tailor's shop next. The party halted right outside a classy-looking building, staring at the entrance like something big was about to kick off. The wooden door groaned as it swung wide, and they stepped into the room like something was waiting. A bright, cheerful tailor named Halton stepped up and greeted them, and the second he saw Lady Klee, he knew exactly who she was. Klee leaned in and said they'd come for Takumi, and the tailor nodded, confirming he was finally ready. Takumi froze in shock, wondering if this was really happening. Like, were they actually giving him proper clothes-tailored work? He spun his head around and instantly got it. The store only stitched clothes made exactly to order. He pushed his point on a baffled man, insisting that mass-produced clothes would be just fine. Cleo stared in total disbelief, blurting out, "Wait, mass-produced clothes are real." Sebastian leaned in and told her the truth. Commoners mostly grab pre-made clothes instead of getting them tailored. She stared in disbelief and admitted she'd only ever worn clothes made to measure. Takumi couldn't help smiling to himself, convinced she was nothing less than a true highborn lady. He asked the tailor with a respectful smile to let him check the ready-made options first. Klee was convinced he deserved something made the right way, properly tailored, from the first stitch to the last. Takumi kept his fingers crossed, praying he'd somehow dodge anything that looked wildly expensive. Cleo stared at him, her eyes full of deep, burning questions. She demanded he snag at least one solid outfit, swearing it was absolutely necessary. The tailors grinned and swore the new clothes would be finished in just a few days. They thanked him, then locked in the details and sealed the order. As they tore away from the tailor bout, gratitude hit them like a wave. Sebastian declared that their next stop would be a general store packed with the smaller stuff they needed. Right then, a smirking guy in a fedora burst into view and planted himself right in front of them, blocking the way. His gang of ruffians closed in on the group, barking orders that they hand over every last coin. The revolt guards snapped their swords out at once, barking for their lady to step back. The leader let out a confident laugh, sure his 6 men could crush the 2 guards without breaking a sweat. Takumi stared ahead with tired disbelief, wondering what kind of dystopian nightmare he'd just stumbled into. A low, menacing growl rolled from right behind Takumi. Leo stepped up fast, eyes locked in with pure intent, while Takumi whispered his name like it mattered. The thug leader snapped his head up, and his face froze into a mask of sheer, jaw-dropping shock. His cronies gawked at him in total shock, their minds racing as they tried to figure out what this giant wolf even was. The leader raged at Leo, made a stupid curse, and lunged in to strike. Leo didn't blink, his eyes stayed locked on the man as he barreled straight toward him. In a blink, Leo snapped his powerful jaws shut right in front of the man's face. Terror froze the man solid, his knife clattered to the ground, completely useless. Takumi leaned in and softly, but firmly scolded his partner for trying to chow down on something that looked way too strange to even taste. The thug toppled backward, totally knocked out cold by sheer terror from that terrifying encounter. Now that the threat was dealt with, Takumi spun to Cleo and blurted, "So what do we do next?" She calmly suggested they call the town guard, and her escort immediately jumped to it. Takumi demanded to know if criminals like that were everywhere, and Sebastian laid bare just how messy the town had gotten. He noticed those prayers always found a target, merchants and travelers pouring through the area day after day. The captured thugs screamed through the chaos, their hands tied tight with rope as they fought to break free. Takumi and Leo loomed over the subdued criminals, faces set in stone, cold, stern, and utterly unimpressed. At last, the town guard burst onto the scene, their boots pounding the cobblestones like thunder. The captain of the guard stared down the bound men and demanded, "So, are you the culprits?" He groveled to Lady Clee, then swore he'd haul the men out at once. Once the criminals vanished, the loud, chaotic street finally exhaled, peace rushed back in like it had been waiting its turn. Cleo swallowed her embarrassment and apologized, but Takumi cut in fast, saying Leo pulled this on his own. Sebastian snapped that it was time to jump back into their shopping spree. Cleo flicked her eyes over her shoulder, and you could see the seriousness and deep thoughts etched across her face. Right as they were about to slip out, a shaky voice burst from the crowd. Takumi snapped his head around, instantly wondering who the heck was trying to get their attention. A young woman with reddish-brown hair leaned in and asked, "Can I steal a moment of your time?" She marched up to them and threw out a quick apology for the interruption, hands clasped tight like she was bracing for judgment. She asked if the wolf was his familiar, then her breath caught when Lady Cleo's face hit her like a shock. Takumi and Cleo locked eyes, both totally thrown, as Cleo's whole vibe snapped out of nowhere, so they just stood there in tense silence, waiting for her to finally explain what was going on. Takumi snapped back, making it crystal clear. Lee wasn't just some familiar to him, she was his partner. The woman lunged forward, totally rattled by the sheer audacity of what she'd just done. She dropped to her knees and begged Lady Cleo for forgiveness, pouring out apologies for her rude behavior. Cleo smiled and told the woman she didn't need to go through all that formality. Takumi realized Cleo didn't just talk to that woman, she hit the whole crowd, like she was speaking to every single one of them at once. Lady Cleo spun around, and her heart dropped as she saw the entire street kneel at once. The woman leaned in and demanded to know if the wolf was really the legendary beast she'd always sworn it was. Cleo shot Takumi a look for the go-ahead, and he grinned and nodded his full consent. She strode forward with total confidence, planting herself in front of the gathered townsfolk to speak her mind. She spun toward the young woman who kicked everything off and with ice-calm confidence asked, "What's your name?" A young woman with reddish-brown hair nervously closes in on Takumi, then blurts out if she can talk with him. She stalls for a split second, then steps up and introduces herself, Emerald. She tells the tale of the wolf's insane, impossible feats, then straight up asks if it could be the legendary silver Fenrir. Klee, stone calm and perfectly poised, quietly admits her suspicions were right all along. Then she turns to the crowd and calmly tells them, this silver Fenrir, Leo-sama, isn't dangerous. Emerald stares in pure disbelief, blurting, wait, is that really true? As murmurs surge through the crowd of watchers. Takumi flashes her a calming smile and assures her that Leo is as gentle as they come, he won't spook her for a second. Still Emerald is not buying it, she starts to protest, and pure doubt floods her voice. Hermione blasted forward, breathless, clutching the old legends of the silver Fenrir, the most terrifying monster ever, and the one nobody had ever beaten. To prove he's right, Takumi throws out a simple command, and Leo immediately drops onto the cobblestones like it's instinct. Emerald's eyes snapped wide in pure shock, because the legendary creature bowed and obeyed flawlessly. Takumi calmly places a hand on Leo's head, like a master soothing his loyal companion. He points to Leo's calm, peaceful vibe in the chaotic town and says that's the clearest proof he's harmless. Emerald clocks it, the town guard isn't reacting at all, and Sebastian points out the truth, they only delivered a flimsy warning. With a warm, reassuring grin, Takumi beckons the still stuck in her tracks Emerald to step a little closer. He swears Lee won't bite, and she finally gives in, slow, cautious, and still watching every move. Her hand plunges into the thick, impossibly soft fur of that magnificent beast. She whispers that he really is gentle, while Takumi watches, wearing that proud, satisfied smile. She can't stop staring, stunned by how wildly addictive that feeling is, like, she seriously can't believe this is the silver Fenrir. Takumi grins with pride and says Leo's got an absolutely gorgeous coat of fur. Cleo strides forward and declares, loud and clear, that Leo is a welcome guest in the Revolt household. She tells him this is the only way to truly keep him safe, and Emerald buys it without a second thought. She blurts out an apology for how scared she got, but Takumi just waves it away and tells her she's got nothing to worry about. Right when it looked like everything was finally over, Takumi gets jolted by yet another voice roaring from the crowd. A man steps up with bright eyes, practically begging, please can we pet the wolf too? Takumi and Leo stare, eyes huge, because the request hits them out of nowhere, sudden, unexpected, and totally wild. Before long, a huge, perfectly lined-up crowd of Rakdos citizens forms, everyone waiting with bated breath to finally pet the resting Leo. 2 hours later, they're still shopping. Now they've rolled into this huge, jaw-dropping building that's nothing short of impressive. Sebastian declares it's the biggest general store in Rakdos, and Takumi's eyes fly wide with pure awe. A cheerful man with a giant mustache, this is the proprietor, bows so deep as he welcomes Lady Cleo with big, friendly flair. Cleo beams at him like he's Hein, then swings her hand toward Takumi and hypes him as her companion. Takumi steps in with perfect politeness, and Hein, the store owner, greets him with a warm, welcoming smile. With a sweeping, grand flourish, Hein pulls them in and says, don't worry, everything's on me. The shop shelves were stuffed to the brim with everything you could crave, from preserved foods to stacks of neatly packaged goods. It's a glittering wonderland, trinkets, jewelry, and decorative treasures dangling from every wall and ceiling like someone turned the whole place into pure eye candy. And get this, there's even a whole section devoted to swords, shields, and full suits of armor. Takumi sweeps his eyes across the shop, stunned, thinking, no way, this place really has everything. He keeps scanning the place, then bam, his eyes snag on something, and he freezes mid-breath. He locks onto a wall of clocks, and then freezes, because every single one is missing its minute and second hands. He whips around to Clee, who's busy studying a display of fine china, and he asks her about it. He leans in and lays out what he's noticed, then points at the strange timepieces like they're screaming a secret. He finally figures out the rules of this crazy world. One day lasts 28 hours, and the clock face is split into a jaw-dropping 14-hour cycle. He can't stop wondering, what if time moves faster here than in his old world? Heinz the proprietor breaks into a grin and asks, so, did you find anything you like? Takumi stares at a tiny mantle clock and wonders if Hein talking about the timepieces. He demands both a mantle clock and a pocket watch, and Clee, no questions asked, promises to buy them for him. Sebastian leans in and asks if there's anything else he might still need for himself. Takumi starts thinking about getting thank you gifts, but the cold truth hits, there's no way he can afford them. Sebastian slips in, sharp as ever, and asks if anything else has caught your attention. Takumi fesses up that he was eyeing 2 accessories, already imagining how amazing they'd look on Clee and Tilla. Sebastian clocks his plan in a flash, but Takumi blurts the truth, he doesn't have a single coin. The butler leans in, weighs everything carefully, and then tells him, "All right, I'll drop this for now." Then he claps his hands together, grinning like a hype man, urging them to grab the gifts with that reward money. He tells them that every bit of today's shopping was only there to get paid for, because saving CLEA came with a reward. Takumi's chest tightens with guilt as he insists it was Leo who saved the day. He smiles through his gratitude, then vows he'll find a way to pay them back. As they step out of the shop, the bell rings. Then the proprietor calls out, wishing them a great day. Takumi grips the bags packed with their brand new hauls, holding on like he can't let go. He clocks how that earlier chaos has thrown them off, and he realizes the sun's about to drop any minute. He freezes mid-step, and it hits him. Realization crashes in like thunder. He can't forget it. Back then, they promised to dig into the mystery behind his gift. Sebastian, still stuck on it too, finally pipes up, "We've got time, so let's go right now." Takumi gulps hard, a bead of sweat popping on his brow as he steels himself for whatever's coming next. He snatches back his courage, then finally nods. Okay, he's going to dig into the truth behind his power. They pull up to this tiny, shady gray building, and right on the door sits a five-pointed star. The door groans as they push inside, and the dim light swallows them whole. Sebastian snaps his presence into the quiet, calling out to a shop that looks totally empty. A beaded curtain sways and rattles, and an old woman's sharp voice snaps at them for showing up late. The woman who says her name is Isabel steps into view with a knowing grin that already feels like a warning. Sebastian shoots an apology for the delay, while Isabel trades friendly talk with a Clear that's a little flustered. Isabel snaps her sharp, intelligent gaze to Takumi. She says it flat out, he has to be the kid here for a Mona appraisal. Takumi remembers Clea warning him that the appraisal could expose what his gift truly is. He steps up with a polite smile and introduces himself to Isabel, and she greets him right back, warm and quick. She tells him to slam his hand onto the massive crystal orb sitting on the counter. He drops into a seat, while Clea and Sebastian keep watch from a respectful distance. The moment his hand hovers over the crystal, it erupts with sparks and starts glowing from deep within. He plants his hand on the orb, and it pulses with a gentle, magical surge. He stares wide-eyed in shock as the light keeps blasting brighter and brighter. The whole shot starts to violently shake. Every magical artifact on those shelves rattles like it's about to break loose. Isabel stares at the glowing orb, and then she grabs Takumi's attention, because now she finally gets what his power really is. She drops the bombshell. He's swimming in mana, so much that he could grow into a real top-tier mage. Her smile drops fast. She fixes him with a serious stare and asks straight up if he's got a gift. She drops the bombshell name of his power, weed cultivation, and explains it does exactly what you'd expect from the name. Clea, totally baffled, blurted out, "So, what am I even supposed to do with a gift like this?" Isabel tells you she can grow any plant you want, so long as it's not meant for farming. Clea's eyes go wide as she blurts out, "Wait, does that include medicinal herbs?" Isabel leans in and promises she can grow any wild plant you bring her. She tells them about the rare Ramoji herb popping up out of nowhere, right where Takumi sat down in the forest. Takumi finally gets it. His weed-growing gift was the whole reason everything kicked off. He replays that moment in his head, the one memory he's never dared to tell Clea. He just thinks about the Ramogi, and suddenly, it bursts up from the ground right under his hand. Clea stares, frozen in shock, as the truth clicks into place and she realizes, yeah, that's exactly what must have happened. Isabel smiles like she just got the final piece of proof, confirming her appraisal lines up with what happened, and that his ability is absolutely invaluable. Cleo snaps back to another weird moment, when the Ramogi dried out instantly in his hand. Isabel tells him that this is just another piece of his gift's power. He can shift a plant until it hits its perfect, optimal state. Takumi can't stop thinking, if only I could use this herb right now, imagine how powerful that would be. He just stares, stunned, and then a single bead of sweat slides down his cheek. He suddenly realizes he can grow any non-vegetable plant on demand and cook it up right away for instant use. He thanks Isabel for the help, and she shrugs it off, saying she only appraised Ismana. An old woman named Isabel pulls Takumi close and slips him one last, final piece of parting advice. She tells him straight up, a gift isn't just a present, it's a special power, and the choice of how to use it is all on him. He realizes he can't waste time. He has to figure out how to unleash that weed-growing gift. Takumi takes in her words and, with a calm look on her face, locks in fresh determination. Under a blazing starry sky, they sprinted back to the magnificent Revolt Villa. It left Greece's old loyalties crystal clear the moment they came back to that grand estate. Every last household staff member packs into the grand hall, ready to roll out the welcome mat the second they walk back home. Cleo tells them to stow their stuff right now, then all meet up for dinner. Leela lanes in and tells Clea that their evening meal is already fully ready and waiting for them. The new chapter kicks off with Takumi replaying everything that happened that day, lost in thought. In his room, Takumi lets out a long, tense sigh that sounds like he's bracing for trouble. He can't deny it anymore. This strange new world has worn him out. As he snaps his eyes toward his loyal buddy, Leo, the hard look on his face suddenly melts away. He leans in and softly beckons the giant white wolf closer, like he's calling his next ally. He gently rests a comforting hand on Leo's thick, soft white fur. He can't stop praising Leo for how calmly he handles those nosy townspeople. He shot Leo a grateful look after the thugs jumped them, right when help finally showed up. He tells Leo that just having him here makes him feel safe, even in this place. Layla gives a soft knock on the door, and it's her way of telling him dinner time has arrived. Takumi's face snaps with surprise, then he blurts out an apology for making her wait at the door. They push forward toward the grand dining hall, chasing dinner as the night settles in. After that mouthwatering feast, they all sink into a calm moment and savor a quiet cup of tea together. Takumi's blown away by the food, and he can't stop showering it with loud, heartfelt praise. Chef Helena can't stop glowing. Every compliment hits him like pure gold. She dips into a deep bow to Clay, eyes shining, because this chance to be praised just felt too perfect to waste. Takumi keeps staring at Klee, and you can practically see his thoughts churning behind his expression. The moment they drop into their seats opposite each other, the huge table starts to feel way too intimate. He finally decides it's time to press her for her own story. He grabs her attention, and his voice turns way more serious than it was a moment ago. He reminds her, clear as day, that he's been totally honest with her from the start. He leans in and asks her if she'll finally spill her own story to him. Klee's eyes widen, she's knocked speechless, stunned by how blunt he is. Her mind goes totally blank, like that personal question hit her out of nowhere. She gets totally flustered, and a scorching blush spreads across her cheeks. Takumi's left totally baffled when his simple question triggers this huge, over-the-top reaction. He finally snaps into it and realizes he has to spell out exactly what he's asking. He blurts out, "Why do you live here, and why does everyone respect you so much?" She lets out a laugh and suddenly gets it. Those questions never had a romantic bone in them. She sucks in a deep breath, then spills her whole situation like it's burning on her tongue. She bluntly tells them, "We're here to escape my father." She tells me her father spoils them to death, but every time, he keeps throwing marriage proposals at her nonstop. Takumi's jaw drops when he hears they're setting up arranged marriage meetings. She remembers that one wild day when 5 different proposals came her way, one after another. Even her younger sister, Tilla, got dragged into those same meetings too. Takumi can't believe it. How does a 10-year-old end up tangled in this mess? She says they'd had enough, grabbed their things, and stormed out of their main home. Her frustration snaps like a fuse, and she unleashes a no-holds-barred, passion-fueled rant. Her sudden outburst hit the room like a lightning strike, and everyone could feel it. For the next 30 minutes, she hammers non-stop complaints about what her father did. She finally clears her throat, then earnestly apologizes for that wildfire of an outburst. Takumi slams the conversation back into place and hammers his other question about the town. He remembers how the town guards act like they already know her name the second she comes into view. She lets it slip that her dad is the Duke, who rules the whole territory. Takumi's jaw drops when he realizes the Duchess is standing right in front of him. She breaks down the nobility ladder, and right at the top she crowns the royal family, leaving the Duke one step beneath them. He immediately blurts out an apology for his rude, off-the-cuff behavior with her. She demands he keep treating her just like he always has. He can't believe it. Her family's rank sits only one step below the king. She even demanded that he talk to her the same easy, relaxed way he talks to Tilla. He hesitates hard, terrified he can't pull off something as casual as that with the Duchess. With a soft, reassuring smile, Sebastian tells him, "You're totally fine." He lays it out. Takumi, the master of a silver Fenrir, sits above them all as their absolute superior. Sebastian slams a heavy, ornate box onto the dining room table. He taps Takumi's mind and reminds him of that earlier conversation about the royal family's crest. He bursts out the Rival crest, and bam, the wolf sprouts fangs and claws like a monster unleashed. Takumi and Klee lean in, scanning every inch, and they spot the brutal design upgrades the minute they hit their eyes. The royal crest screams power of the throne, while the rebel crest roars with raw, battle-ready martial might. The revolt family has battled, survived, and left scars across generations alongside the mighty silver Fenvirs. A silver-haired fencer got helped by their ancestor in a brutal war that shook everything. Ever since that day, they've sworn it's their duty to worship these creatures. Takumi just can't bridge the legends to his own soft, gentle Leo. That's the reason so many people in their territory instantly recognize the beast's legend. Sebastian snaps Takumi's focus to him, then moves in to cut off the conversation and shift the topic. He pulls Takumi away from the table on the spot for a private word. Sebastian quietly leaned in and asked Takumi what he wanted to do with that item. Takumi snaps back to it and remembers the gifts he'd planned to get for the sisters. He slaps two beautifully wrapped boxes onto the table right in front of Klee and Tilla. The sisters lock eyes on the totally unexpected newcomer, and curiosity and shock hit them at the same time. He tells them it's just a tiny token of gratitude, his way of saying thank you. Sebastian presses him to calm down, and he instantly spirals into a flustered mess trying to explain himself. He urges them to tear into the gifts, and the moment they do, shock hits them hard. He hands young Tilla the first gift, a long, slender box, and lets the excitement hit. She rips open the wrapping paper in one breath, eager to see what's hiding inside. She spots a stunning wolf-shaped pendant necklace and snatches it up like it's destiny. He slaps down the second, bigger gift box for the stunt clear. She opens it and there it is, a breathtaking corsage of spotless white flowers, so perfect it almost stops her breath. Beaming from ear to ear, she pours out a heartfelt thank you for the gorgeous, thoughtful gift. Klee snaps her fingers and immediately calls for Layla, the maid, to come rushing over and help her. Layla swoops in and pins that gorgeous corsage into her long blonde hair. She whips around to Takumi and asks, "So, how does this new accessory look on me?" He tells her that the already stunning person somehow got even more beautiful. Sebastian and Leo lean in, smiling with warm, happy eyes as they watch the scene unfold. The very next day, Takumi sinks into the courtyard and devours a botanical encyclopedia like it's the key to everything. He's blown away by the wild variety of medicinal herbs in this new world, like every corner has something powerful waiting to be discovered. The whole scene snaps back to roughly 30 minutes before his experiment, like the story just hit rewind. He spots Klee, then flashes a respectful smile and asks if he can borrow her garden. He admits he's itching to test his weed cultivation gift, like he wants to experiment and see what he can grow. Klee can't stop herself from getting hooked by his request to try out the power he just unlocked. He can't wait to test his power. What useful plants will he grow into existence? Cleo flashes a grin and immediately gives in, letting him use the garden. Takumi snaps his focus to the sharp-eyed, distinguished butler, Sebastian. He leaned in and asked if anyone in the villa had books about medicinal herbs. Later on, he gets completely lost in a massive botanical encyclopedia. The book flips open to a wild sketch of a spiky, fleshy leaf plant. He stands in the garden, staring at that strange, unreadable text, desperate to figure out how to break its code. A sudden thought hits him, wait, is this plant row really aloe, or did he just get fooled? He decides to put his power to the test, so he conjures a plant he can see in his mind perfectly. He rolls up his sleeves and gets ready to put his brand new theory through the ultimate test. Sebastian, Cleotilla, and Leo fix their eyes on him, completely hooked like they don't dare blink. He sinks into a low crouch and declares that the time to start is here. He starts chanting the name of his rare, powerful gift. With his palms slammed into the ground, he fires off his weed cultivation power like a weapon. The ground right in front of him explodes upward in a violent burst of dust. His eyes snapped wide, stunned by the sudden, crushing power of what happened. The whole crowd, Leo included, went silent, then gasped in shared disbelief. From the wrecked ground, the first leaves of a brand new plant burst up into the light. It shoots up at an insane pace, thick leaves bursting open one after another in seconds. He just finished conjuring this massive, fully grown plant, and now he can't stop staring at it in pure, blown-away amazement. Tilla roars with joy at his win, while Sebastian and Klee are left completely shell-shocked. Sebastian strides up and fires off a question. Takumi, tell me, have you already got to know the row plant? A giant, miraculous plant towers in the center of the garden, standing proud like it owns the whole place. Takumi leans in and tells them, yeah, we had the same kind of plan back on my world. The butler leans in, eyes locked, and he starts processing this jaw-dropping new information like it's burning a hole in his mind. Sebastian breaks it down. Ro is no ordinary herb here. It's a beast of a healing plant that can turn the tide. Takumi snaps to the realization. He's 100% sure it's exactly what the Elohi already knows. He jerks up out of his chair in an instant, eyes locked on the butler as he listens. Sebastian spills the truth. That herb mends wounds the second it touches skin. He claims it can even mend wounds so deep they reach the bone, then leave them healed with 0 scars. Takumi's jaw drops as he realizes this plant hits way harder than he ever imagined. Sebastian lays it out. This thing is so insanely rare that it's worth a fortune. Takumi's jaw drops when he realizes just how insanely precious that herb really is. The butler leans in, staring at Takumi like he's witnessing something unreal, musing on just how massive this kid's power could become. Takumi holds his breath and asks, super carefully, how much that precious herb could possibly sell for. Sebastian drops the bombshell. Only 10 leaves are worth enough to build a whole house. Overwhelmed, Takumi suddenly sees it. He could turn these herbs into a trade and become a merchant. Klee clocks how much his gift could rake in, because it comes with 0 startup cost. She snaps to her feet, eyes locked in, ready to hammer out this new business opportunity right now. He admits he can't stand being a freeloader, and straight up insists he wants to work. Sebastian fires off a sharp warning. If you flood the market, the herb prices will crash hard. Klee whispers that they should hang on to the first plant and save it for the villa's needs. Then she leans in and tells him, if you sell your herbs, we'll team up, so what's it going to be? She steps forward and makes it official. Revelt's family will take over every single sale. He nods and confirms it. Ducal House is stepping in as the official vendor. She lays it out plainly. Those taxes are only meant to pay for running the government and funding the military. The family earns their living by depending on private businesses to keep the money flowing. Carrying the ducal family name would instantly wrap the whole venture in credibility and trust. She promises him big, saying his partnership won't just be valued, it'll be paid handsomely. He straight up admits he doesn't have a single real urge to become a merchant himself. He admits he's got 0 business savvy, then tells them he'll hand it all over to their family. Cleo breaks into a grin, over the moon that he finally agreed to her preliminary pitch. Then it hits her, one huge obstacle stands in her way. She can't move forward without her father's permission. She groans over the never-ending parade of arranged marriage proposals he keeps tossing her way. She spots this chance to slam the door on their proposals, and it lights a fire under her. Takumi spends the afternoon transforming a bend in the garden into a thriving herb patch. He invents a brand new plant from thin air, something the book never mentioned, straight from sheer imagination. Watching them play, he blurted out a wish for a stamina-restoring herb, and then straight up forged one right on the spot. Back in his room, he stares at that mysterious leaf he accidentally summoned, like it's hiding a secret meant just for him. He decides to tackle it later, carefully sets the leaf aside, and heads straight for dinner. Later that evening, Leo digs into his meal with wild, messy enthusiasm, like he can't get enough. Takumi spots the mess on his partner's face and boldly declares, all right, bath time. The giant wolf lets out a furious howl as Takumi digs in and demands a proper, thorough wash. He yanks the reluctant wolf along, and Klee just grins quietly like it's her favorite joke. Water blasts against the grand marble bathhouse of the villa, and Takumi steps in with a hard truth. These baths are going to become a regular routine, whether Leo likes it or not. With a bright grin, he braces himself and gets ready to drench that massive wolf with warm water. He rips into scrubbing Leo's back with the brush, and suds erupt everywhere. Leo clamps his eyes shut tight, bracing for the relentless, splashy scrubbing that pounds at him. Kumi's standing there, covered in suds, as she blurts out that his massive partner is absolutely filthy. He can't help but think, of course, after that brutal run through the forest, it all makes perfect sense. He blurts that it's time to wash Leo's face, and the wolf is stunned like, totally not ready for that. He rips into Leo, furious that his stunning face is now splattered with meat sauce. Beaming, he wipes his brow and announces, loud and proud, that the grueling wash is finally done. Leo yanks his body hard, and a thunderous spray of water bursts across the room. He yells for the maid, Layla, to rush in and help him dry the giant wolf that's still dripping everywhere. The grand empty bathhouse steams in a hushed glow after they finally wrap everything up. Takumi finally catches a break, sinking into the steamy hot water and letting out a deep, satisfied sigh. He grins in pure bliss, already picturing how amazing that hot bath feels after a brutal day. He splashes around with pure joy, practically shouting that this huge bath is the absolute best thing ever. He admits washing Leo was a total grind, but somehow it still turned into a blast. That sharp click of a door unlocking tells him he's back, right into the main villa. He turns to the whole crew and his family, grinning, and thanks them for letting him use the bath. Tillix can't stop praising how insanely soft Leo's fur feels after it's just been cleaned. Cleo throws open the door and welcomes him back, then heaps praise on him for how hard he worked washing down that giant wolf. Tilla buries her face in Leo's fur and just goes wide-eyed, stunned by how unbelievably soft it is. Cleo points out that Leo's silver coat is shining way brighter than it used to. She mulls over how his noble bearing makes every legend feel instantly believable. Takumi nods and admits it. Leo's fur looks stunning now, clean, healthy, and perfectly taken care of. Klee sidesteps the whole thing and steers the talk back to the forest, where they first ever crossed paths. She spills a family legend, tracing her ancestor right back to that same forest. He leaned in and demanded to know if her ancestor was tied to the legendary silver Fenrir. She grabbed his hand and dragged him with her, and Leo plunged deep into the legendary forest. Her eyes blaze wide with earnest, hard-won hope, like she's determined to reach her quest no matter what. She fires off the plea again, and Kumi freezes, completely stunned with no words to answer. He can only gawk in stunned silence, totally thrown off by her sudden, no-jokes request. The whole household, Leo included, erupts in pure collective shock. She tells him the legendary meet between her ancestors all went down in those woods. He remembers that brutal, towering forest, the same place where he first opened his eyes in this world. He leaned in and demanded to know how her ancestor ever managed to befriend that legendary beast. Klee finally admits the real, important details of their bond are still a complete mystery. She says that every time she searches, she finds the same problem. The tail is still missing pieces, no matter where she looks. Tilla gleefully lunges in for a hug against Leo's massive snout, then Cleo's story snaps the mood completely. She spins a legend about a poor soul who got trapped by Fenrir right in that very forest. Because of that ancient tale, the woods got christened Fenrir's Forest. Takumi, desperate for answers, lanes in and asks what's really different between the two kinds of beasts. Klee points out that regular Fenrirs are tiny and sluggish compared to Leo. And even so, they're still quicker than any human, fast enough to rip them apart in seconds. She insists that not a single soul has spotted Fenrir since her ancestors' days. The legendary Fenrir's forest rises in front of them, an imposing canopy that looms like a warning hanging in the air. Takumi stared into the weird coincidences tying him, Leo, and Klee to this exact place. He can't shake the feeling that something bigger, some crazy destiny, is circling right here. As Klee starts talking again, Takumi snaps into full attention and listens like every word matters. She leans in and says the forest is now pure legend, and nobody's got the nerve to step inside. He finally gets what she means. She's convinced Fenrir's terrifying power still lingers there. With a razor-bright smile, Klee confirms it. His suspicion was spot on. Sebastian bolts forward in sheer panic, pleading with his lady to reconsider. He insists the road is way too dangerous, even with their powerful crew backing them up. The maids nodded in unison, dead certain that not a single human could make it through an expedition that deadly. Everyone crowds around Lady Klee, pleading with her, begging her to change her mind. Klee snaps them shut on the spot and declares, "This one's between me and Takumi." She shoots an apology for the interruption, then addresses Takumi with full formality and repeats her request, straight to the point. Takumi listens, and her heartfelt plea lands on him with crushing weight. Cleo stared at him, her face blazing with unwavering hope and total determination. He feels the air turn razor-thin and realizes he can't possibly say no to her. He asks to talk to Leo first, and Cleo immediately nods and agrees without hesitation. Yanking his gaze from the tight, tense crowd, Takumi shouts for his partner. Leo jerks his head up from Tilla's embrace, eyes locked on Takumi. Staring down his towering companion, Takumi takes a breath and prepares to spill the whole situation. He leaned in and demanded to know what Leo thought about heading back into the forest with Lady Klee. He leans in and demands to know, does his partner really mean it, or is he just pretending? He voices his fears of what could go wrong, and Leo fires back with confident barks. Takumi's jaw drops. Leo just wrote off the legendary Fenrir like it's nothing but small fry. He acts as the translator for the group, then silver Fenrirs welcome one another like family. He can't believe Leo just casually claims he'll wipe out an entire pack like it's nothing. He frets over those other monsters, but Leo just snaps them off with another sharp bark. Every other monster Leo points out, he treats them like nothing because Fenrir is in a league all his own. Takumi can't believe it. How does his partner know all this about legendary creatures? Then he turned to Leo and demanded to know how he's supposed to understand him, something that left both of them completely baffled. Takumi chooses to accept it, flashes a grin and tells them, "Don't sweat it, it's nothing." Leo's wild approval gives Takumi the green light at last. His decision is finally locked in. He whirls around toward the waiting girl, breath tight, ready to slam his answer into the air. He takes her hand and agrees to go, and sheer joy lights up her face. The household staff snaps into absolute, unfiltered terror, their faces frozen in pure horror. Takumi snaps his head toward the staff, feeling their immediate, powerful objections hit like a wall. The three of them can only cough out a pathetic, beaten reply. He tells them he gets it. Every nerve in him understands why they want to shut down Klee's deadly plan. Sebastian leans in, voice heavy, and confirms this is exactly their biggest fear. He can't stand the thought of his beloved lady stepping anywhere near danger. Takumi steps in and reassures everyone, with Leo around, that forest will be safe. Sebastian stared, his face carved with doubt, like part of him still couldn't believe it was true. As Takumi confirms it, Layla leans in and demands how he can possibly understand the great beast. He doesn't even know how to do it, but somehow he can still understand his partner. Leela watches Leo nod along to every single word Takumi says, like he's fully buying it. Three servants are left in total shock, staring at the unbelievable truth like it just shattered reality. Leo bursts into a string of fierce, powerful barks like he's shouting, "I'm telling the truth." Takumi relays Leo's last promise. The silver Fenrirs won't lift a blade against their own. Klee asked if he was satisfied, and a broken-down Sebastian finally caved, giving in with defeat. With everything finally settled, Klee lights up and declares their plan is officially moving forward. She urged him to get everything ready, because they'd be gone the very minute tomorrow rolled in. Takumi leans in and shoots Klee a question. Why on earth is she so dead set on tracking down another silver Fenrir? She stalls for a beat, eyes flicking back to her younger sister, Tilla, like the answer might bite. She shuts it down on the spot and tells them to save that conversation for later. She reminds everyone that their long talk has finally rocked Tilla to sleep. Takumi and Klee exchange a calm, knowing glance at the sleeping girl. She leans in and murmurs that she'll spill everything on the trip, far from Sebastian's ears. Takumi nods and quietly promises to guard her secret until they're finally alone. She throws him a small, knowing smile and seals their secret deal for good. Later, in the dead quiet of his room, Takumi sinks in and lets his thoughts hit hard. He can't believe it, he's actually back in that terrifying forest, and the thought hits him like a shock. He swore he'd never return after charging into the orcs, then got completely turned around and lost anyway. But Klee's wish and his own burning curiosity snapped his decision around. His gaze locks onto the mysterious leaf he just conjured with his gift. He just left that weird plant sitting on the little table, like nothing happened. He files it away in his head. Once he's got a breather, he's coming back to investigate everything on his properties. Before Leo can react, he abruptly snaps the leaf up and clamps it between his teeth. The great wolf downs the unknown herb in one lightning-fast gulp. As Leo keeps chewing, Kumi suddenly gasps in alarm, shouting at him. He locks eyes with his partner, and the shock hits so hard it freezes his face into pure disbelief. He snatches Leo's face with shaking hands, panicked that this mysterious herb could be poisoned. Suddenly, Leo erupts with raw power, blasting a stunned Takumi backward. Takumi can only freeze in shock, staring at his friend like, wait, what the hell is happening right now? The great wolf's whole body suddenly blazes with fresh, wild vitality, like it just got recharged by pure life. Takumi cuts in, asking what's going on, and his tail starts whipping around with insane energy. He leaned in and demanded to know what that mysterious herb did to Leo. He gets the message loud and clear, and Leo surges with new strength, fueled like never before. Takumi realizes, oh no, he might have stumbled onto a herb that can restore stamina like nothing else. Later that night, sleep feels miles away for the two of them. He leans in and tells energetic Leo they're not getting much sleep tonight. He nods and agrees to play for a bit, because their journey kicks off tomorrow. Next morning, the expedition party storms into their grand entrance home and gathers up, ready for whatever comes next. Layla snaps that everything's set and tells them they're finally ready, time to get moving. Takumi takes in the sight and realizes the staff are all dressed for the adventure ahead. He demanded to know if every guard was on the way, because the group was dangerously big. Klee clenches her resolve and declares, loud and clear, that they're not cutting their ranks one more time. As Tilla waves back, Takumi leans in and says he was only trying to keep Klee comfortable. Tilla begs them to stay sharp out there and to come back home fast. Their big, sturdy carriage door stands wide open, ready to swallow them into the next leg of the journey. Sebastian snatches the reins and steers them straight toward the edge of the forest. Inside the carriage, Takumi ends up wedged right between the two women, stuck there with no breathing room. He turns bright red, completely flustered by how close they are. Leo shoots a glance back from the outside, grinning like he already knows everything. Sebastian lets out a low chuckle from the driver's seat, grinning as he notes how young at heart they still are. Inside the carriage, Klee chews him out, while she and a flustered Takumi are forced to sit way too close. With a final shout, Sebastian blasts out that they're leaving the Grand Revolt Villa, no turning back. The carriage thunders down the road, and right beside it, Leo lopes along like it's nothing. Takumi pops his head out the window and fires off a question. Sebastian, how long is this trip really going to take? Seeing his face change, Klee snapped, asking Takumi what was wrong. Burning with curiosity about his past, she demanded to know how people moved through his original world. Takumi lines in and explains they were crammed into self-propelled rides made of iron, like the whole thing was forged to move. Layla gasped, staring at him, and blurted, "So you lived in a world with no magic at all?" Cleo's eyes blow wide, glittering with fierce curiosity as this shocking new detail hits. Takumi keeps talking, leaning into the moment as the scenery streaks past outside his window. He makes it crystal clear, those machines ran on a special liquid fuel. He explains that when this fuel burns, it spits out power, then the heavy iron machines finally start moving. Klee is totally stunned, blurting out that it sounds like mind-blowing technology. Takumi muses that the way they live it, without magic, somehow makes their lives richer. The carriage keeps rolling, tearing through forests and climbing past jagged, towering mountains. They finally burst onto the edge of Fenrir's massive, intimidating forest. Takumi hits the ground, instantly checks on his partner, and asks if he's worn out. Sebastian slowly loosens the harnesses, freeing a team of powerful horses. Takumi lanes in and demands, "So what happens to the horses once they're left in the forest?" Layla grins and tells Takumi and the guards to go grab some firewood. A huge pile of dry branches snaps together in seconds, ready to roar into a campfire. Takumi and Leo stand over their handiwork, grinning like they just nailed it. Takumi clocked Leo's laser-focused stare, locked onto that pile of wood. He leans in and tells Sebastian that Leo looks like he's itching to be the one to strike the match. Klee practically bursts with joy, giddy at the chance to finally watch a silver Fenrir cast magic. The whole party backs away, eyes locked on Leo as he strides right up to the kindling. The great wolf sinks into stillness, then draws a deep, measured breath, pulling his magic energy in like a storm gathering at his core. Then he blasts a roaring torrent of brilliant orange fire straight from his mouth. Every noble, every guard in armor, everyone stands there, wide-eyed and frozen in pure disbelief. The bonfire crackled with joy and someone struck it, then boom, it lit perfectly in an instant. Klee Marvel just admitted it. This is the legendary magic of a silver Fenrir. Once their meal's done, Klee shoots her hand toward a gift she's been carrying just for this moment. Layla grins and thanks Leo for the fire, then announces, "All right, now I'm cooking." She drops to her knees by the fire and begs the great beast to hold on, just for a moment. She lifts the first bowl and sets the meal down in a neat stack of plain wooden dishes. After that mouthwatering feast, Leo lets out a joyful bark, thanking Layla like he's overflowing with gratitude. Klee blurted out, "All right, once we're done cleaning up, we're moving on." She snaps out Takumi and Sebastian's names, and her expression turns dead serious. She shoves a gorgeous, expertly made short sword into Takumi's hands, locked away in its fine scabbard. Takumi's eyes go wide. He admits he's never even held a sword before. Klee tells them this little trick will slice right through the forest and clear their path. Takumi gets it right away, and he fires off a heartfelt thank you for the thoughtful gift. As Leo studies the brand new blade, he leans in and sniffs it with quiet, hungry curiosity. Sebastian thrusts his plan into the air, slice straight through the woods and hunt down the river. With everything set, the party plunges into the thick, dark woods, where the shadows feel like they're closing in. The guard nods and confirms their plan, using the river as their guiding line. Takumi grins and says Leo looks insanely cheerful, like he can't help but glow with good vibes. They crane their necks and stare up at a massive canopy of ancient trees, so thick it swallows the sky. The forest felt like a silent giant, towering trunks looming overhead and deep shadows swallowing every step. After a while, Sebastian snaps and declares, "I can hear the river now." Klee pants hard, wiped out from that brutal trek. Layla fires her up, promising her a well-earned break the moment they finally hit the water. Suddenly, Leo locks up. His massive body goes rigid, and his ears snap upright like he just heard something big. A vicious, low growl rattles in his chest, screaming to everyone, danger is here. Takumi jolts with a sharp gasp, staring as his partner suddenly locks into an aggressive stance. Guard Johanna shouts a fierce warning, orc raiders are closing in fast. Klee jolts in shock, blurting orcs, over and over like she can't believe what she's hearing. Sebastian shouts at Philip, the head guard, and Philip snaps into action the second he hears his name. Philip barks sharp orders to his subordinates, Johanna and Nicola, shouting for them to fall into formation. Johanna snaps with fierce determination that they're going to protect Lady Klee, no matter what. The three guards slammed into a tight semicircle around the nobles, standing guard like a fortress. Nicola snaps a grim salute, eyes locked in, ready to tear into battle the second the command hits. Takumi steels himself and decides he can't sit this out anymore. He grabs his brand new weapon and heads into the fight. With a sharp motion, he yanks the short sword from its scabbard, jaw clenched and resolve blazing across his face. He feels the enemy crashing through the undergrowth, closing in fast. The guards freeze in shock when three massive orcs come crashing out of the trees. Those brutish monsters come barreling in, unleashing a thunderous roar that rattles the ground with every step. With a burst of white fur and pure fury, Leo rockets straight into the chaos. Then the attack crashes in like a brutal cyclone, teeth snapping and claws shredding everything in its path. In the blink of an eye, Leo stands tall, claiming victory over a slain orc's lifeless body. Philip can't believe it. The whole confrontation is finished in the blink of an eye. Cleo, Layla, and Sebastian stare at the power display in stunned silence, eyes wide like they can't believe what they're seeing. Takumi bolts to his partner and screams his name, desperate to see if he's okay. After that short but brutally intense fight, he leaned in and asked Leo if he was okay. Leo rockets forward and blankets Takumi's face with a huge, slobbery, full-on affectionate lick. Takumi breaks into laughter, scratches the great wolf behind the ears, and hypes him up for his pure, fearless bravery. The three slain orcs are sprawled across the forest floor, shattered and broken where they fell. Takumi stands unshaken, while his loyal, powerful guardian towers over the wreckage. He admits there was nothing they could do as the guards stand there, seething with their own crushing inadequacy. Sebastian just stands there, stunned. He never once dreamed the combat power could be this insane. Leo bursts into a string of happy barks, and that sound immediately snaps Clear's attention to him. Klee's curiosity hit max, and she demanded to know what Leo was trying to say to them right now. Takumi listens to his partner for a second, sweat rolling down his brow like he's bracing for impact. He steps in and translates for the stunned guards, and Leo flashes a grin, insisting orc meat is straight-up delicious. Klee can't ignore it. Those orcs are a nightmare foe, even for the most battle-hardened soldiers. Takumi orders the stunned guards, for now, move to the river. He leaned in and asked Leo straight up if he could haul one of those brutal, heavy orc carcasses. Sebastian flashes a grin and praises their unstoppable, powerful companion as rock-solid dependable. Then he barks orders to the guards, carry the two remaining orc corpses away. The guards grunt under the crushing weight of fallen monsters piled all around them. Takumi watches them, his thoughts racing as he realizes just how brutal their job must be. A sudden flash of inspiration hits him hard, and he remembers his gift like it was always waiting. He shoots his hand into the satchel at his side in a heartbeat. He shouts at Philip and the others, telling them to hang on for just a moment. He digs through his bag and finally finds it, a tiny leafy herb, right where he needs it. He shoves this bizarre plant right in front of the guards, only to watch their confusion explode. He tells them, chow down on this, and carrying those orcs will suddenly feel way more manageable. The guards studied the herbs like they didn't trust a single leaf, but then, against all doubt, they finally agreed to try them. They each shove those strange, bitter leaves straight into their mouths. The guards can't believe it. This herb hits their tongues with a sweet, soda-like flavor that tastes downright amazing. A soldier bursts out, laughing in awe as he feels weightless, so strong he could hoist an orc with one arm. With deafening roars, the revitalized guards effortlessly hoist those brutal, heavy orc carcasses like they weigh nothing. Klee's jaw drops, then Takumi leans in and admits he brewed that herb himself through his weed cultivation. He lifts the miraculous leaf like it's a miracle in his hands, the very thing that just gave them their strength back. Takumi brushes it off as pure chance, then shouts at everyone to keep pushing, straight for the river. Klee puffed her cheeks and demanded that he spill every last detail later, no excuses. Just as they push forward, the thick forest finally parts, and the riverbank clearing opens up in front of them. Takumi strides ahead, shouting that they've finally arrived at their destination. Klee lets out a huge sigh of relief, finally knowing they can drop everything and take a much-needed break. With a joyful bark, Leo rockets toward the river, charging in full excitement. Takumi fires up the exhausted Klee, insisting they're right around the corner and pushing her forward to the finish. The great wolf bursts into the water with joy, paddling through the cool waves like it just found paradise. On the riverbank, Leo shakes every drop off his coat like a fresh start, while the rest of the party finally settles in around him. Takumi grins, clocking that his partner still pulls off that familiar doggy paddle. Klee sits alone on a rock with her eyes shut tight, sinking into a quiet, heavy silence like the world has gone still. The party teams up and hacks through the meat like a well-oiled machine, then gets the evening meal cooking fast and hot. At the water's edge, the guards keep grinding through their grim preparations, getting the orcs ready. Takumi snaps out, yelling Klee, and shattering the silence as she sinks into her lonely thoughts. He strides up to her and tells her they've already picked the perfect spot to camp. Takumi leans in and asks if she's okay, because he can feel her quiet distress hanging in the air. She clenches her teeth, snaps on a fake smile, and insists she's totally fine as she pushes herself to keep walking. He watches her with worry, and he can tell she's already shoved past her breaking point. They set up camp for the night right in the riverside clearing, and the whole place feels like it's holding its breath. Sebastian tells Lady Klee to rest, while the others scramble into action and set up camp. Philip grins and tells everyone, don't worry, the guards have the tents handled. Leela gets ready to cook the orc meat, and Takumi steps in fast to lend a hand. She asked for help, and he jumped at the chance with a bright, cheerful smile. A wild, mischievous thought suddenly zaps into Takumi's mind. He tells Leo he could step in, and the wolf practically pounces at the chance to help. That night, Takumi savors every bite of their delicious dinner, while Leo snores softly by the fire. He settles right next to his loyal partner, eyes sliding over toward Klee's tent. His face twists with worry, and he can't stop silently checking in on her, wondering if she's okay. As night creeps in, Phillips leans in and pushes, all right, let's lock down who's on watch tonight. Sebastian catches Takumi off guard and tells him straight up, out there in a monster-filled forest, you'd better have a watch. Takumi finally realizes he never even needed those precautions in his calm, peaceful world. Sebastian calls for everyone to take turns on guard duty, then he shifts in and starts moving. He moves fast and claims a tight guard rotation with Philip, Johanna, Layla, and Nicola for himself. Takumi listens closely, and his stomach drops when he realizes his name isn't on the schedule. He leans in and asks Sebastian if it's really okay that he's not taking watch tonight. Sebastian clocks that Takumi isn't used to this kind of suffering, then tells him, don't worry, I've got you. Takumi won't back down. He pleads to jump in for his turn, even though he's still green. Leo and his giant companion throw a massive, supportive yawn right next to him. Takumi flashes a huge grin and boldly declares that his power partner, Leo, is coming with him. Seeing Sebastian's grit, he warms up and finally agrees to let him join in. Takumi and Leo stood there grinning, thrilled to finally be part of the night's duties. Sebastian steps up and makes it official. Takumi and Leo are up first, taking the first watch. He tells them start at the 10th hour, then flip to the next shift after 3 hours. Takumi yanks out his pocket watch and stares it down, doing the math as his shift counts down to the 13th hour. Suddenly, Klee shoots to her feet and announces she'll stand watch too. Takumi whips her gaze over to her, stunned that she's still digging her heels in. Sebastian shoots back right away, reminding her that their journey has left her completely drained. Philip adds, if you're still wiped out tomorrow, we're turning back. The whole party, Leo included, stands there, staring with worry etched all over their faces. Cleo shoots a glare downward, refusing to be the only one lounging while everyone else busts their tails. Takumi leans in and tells her, soft but firm, to get a good rest today, because tomorrow's gonna be the real fight. He begged her, like really begged, to hand over the watch to them, and after all that resistance, she finally gives in. Night crashes over the forest, and the sky twinkles with scattered stars far off in the dark. Takumi huddles by the crackling campfire, pressed against Leo as he keeps watch in the eerie quiet. He stares into the roaring flames, praying for some way, any way, to save Clay. In the dead dark forest, his watch kept ticking, and every quiet second felt like it was crushing him. He checks his pocket watch, and those hands tick closer to the end of his shift with every sharp click. He glances at the clock and realizes he's got just one more hour of guard duty left. From his post, he watches the silent camp like a hawk, every breath and every shadow under his watch as they sleep. He and Leo snap their heads toward the tents at once. Something just rattled out from inside one of them. Klee steps out with a bright, warm smile and praises them for crushing it during the watch. In the dead of night, the tent flap creaks, and suddenly it swings open. Takumi, hanging out on watch with Leo, leaned in and asked Cleo why she couldn't sleep. With a soft smile, she tells him, "No, that's not what's happening." She asks if she can tag along, and he lights up as he warmly invites her to come over. By the crackling fire, she settles in close and slips him a soft, heartfelt thank you. A heavy, crushing sadness clings to her, smothering the bright spirit she usually wears like armor. They fall into a tense hush for a beat, and the firelight flickers and dances across both of them. Takumi clocks her mood shift and softly asks what's wrong, like he can feel the storm building. As the fire crackles and pops, she freezes for a beat, then finally steels herself and starts to talk. She finally admits she stepped outside for one reason only, to talk to him. Her voice rings out across their tiny, lonely campsite, bouncing over the whole wide stretch of emptiness. Takumi's eyes widened because she didn't just want to talk, she specifically chose him. She nods softly like it's finally settled in her heart, then drops her gaze to the ground. They huddle by the crackling flames, and Leo stays right there, silent, steady, and ready to guard them with everything he's got. She clasped her hands and launched into a formal, respectful speech to him. She thanks him for showing up, and he admits he came just as curious as she is. But she swears, eyes burning with sincerity, that he has to let her thank him. She insists she only made it here because of how he helped her. He locks eyes with her, and suddenly he gets it. Her visit isn't random, there's a deeper reason behind it. He leans in and asks softly if there's anything else she wants to talk about. She finally admits it's all about her invitation. She wants him to come out to the forest. With a face twisted in pain, she admits that Sebastian chewed her out for it. Sebastian told her he was sure Takumi's kind heart would never let him turn her down. She blurts out an apology, admitting she never gave him a real chance to say no. Takumi finally admits he can't say no to anyone, but he also laughs and tells you he was genuinely glad to show up. She insists her choices were wrong, especially for someone standing under a ducal house. Takumi's jaw drops as he blurts out her claim about a noble family again and again, completely stunned. Her eyes are squeezed shut tight, and her face wears shame like a cruel mask. Her hands clench into fists in her lap as she blurts out her regret. She blurts out what she did, something truly shameful, and falls apart because she can't bring herself to forgive what's in her past. Her head dips low, and her long hair tumbles forward, veiling her face as her distress spills over. Takumi stares at her, and his face softens, empathy and worry washing over him like a wave. He can't stop thinking about his companion. He's silently calling out to Leo in his head. Takumi's casual compliment hits Cleo like lightning, instantly flustering her so hard she can't even find her words, yet somehow she's left glowing with this warm, fuzzy feeling. Cleo gasps as Leo eases his head onto her lap, and it all feels way too real. By the crackling campfire, Takumi tells Klee to pet Leo because he needs to calm down fast. A tight shot of Klee's hand as she softly lays it onto Leo's fur. Panel. A wave of relief washes over Klee's face as she gently pets Leo, and this soft, happy smile comes right back. Panel. Takumi watches her with a gentle, relieved smile, like the weight finally slips off her chest. Panel. Takumi leans in close and reassures Cleo, swearing he's got nothing against her. Penelio. Takumi leans in, eyes locked on her, and insists, no, he wasn't dragged along against his will. Panel. A quick transitional panel flashes a starry night sky above dark, twisted forest tree tubs. Clea's cheeks burst into blush as Takumi drops a charming, playful compliment, and she freezes, flustered and speechless. Panel. Clea's fully caught off guard. Her cheeks burn red so fast she can't even string a single sensible word together. Leo flopped his big head onto Clea's lap, purring like a warm blanket as he soothed her. Panel. Takumi leans in and grills Clee, asking if she's truly sure about his proposal. Takumi flashed a grin and pitched a deal to end their whole mess, right there in the next panel. A tight close-up on Klee's eye, pure shock blazing across her face as she stares at his suggestion panel. Cleo nods along with Takumi's terms, her gentle smile glowing with trust, then the panel hits. Klee kicks off her explanation, and her face turns deadly serious as she looks off to the side panel. Klee cuts in and says her obsession isn't just anything, it's the silver fenders of this world. Takumi leans in and blurts, "Why do you even care about silver Fenrirs? What does Leo have to do with it?" A massive mansion looms in the frame as Klee leans in, spilling a rumor that started right there. Takumi's eyes widen as Klee drops the rumor, and he leans in like he can't afford to miss a single word. Baby Clea lies in a fancy, jewel-bright bassinet. People whisper she might be a reincarnation, and the panel cuts to Tombai Huar. Takumi leans in by the fire, eyes sharp, and presses Klee, "Do you remember this time?" Like the answer could change everything. Panel. Klee's face turns grim as she leans in and explains, "There are portraits that show the first Duke's whole life." A wall packed with portraits flashes the first Duke's life, like it's a mirror of Klee herself. Takumi asks, "Was the first Duke really a woman?" And Klee nods like it's the biggest reveal of all. Cut to the panel. Takumi pauses, deep in thought, as the clues land hard. Klee grew up looking exactly like the portraits in that panel. Klee flashes across the screen in different ages, each time meeting, then smashing, the servant's brutal expectations. Panel. Takumi sinks by the crackling fire with Klee and Leo, then leans in and demands answers about her father, like he can't wait to hear the truth. Cleo flashes a warm smile and tells you, "My dad never bought those rumors," and then the panel hits. A wild flashback hits. Her father grabs her attention and urges the young Clay to live without chains, to run free. Takumi beams with warmth, motioning as he talks to Klee, his eyes soft with kindness. Panel. With her eyes shut, Cleo breathes out a calm smile, remembering her father's loving support. Pinon. A dark campsite looms in the night as Klee pours out her lingering feelings. Swana Wee. Klee squeezes her eyes shut, presses both hands to her chest, and pours out how deeply those feelings own her. Panel. A sweeping shot of the forest as Klee bursts out with the real reasons she showed up, straight to the point. Panel. Takumi leans in and quietly tells Klee that Leo might be the only Fenrir in this whole place. Takumi's face tightens with worry as he asks Klee straight up, "Are you really giving up on the search?" Panel. Klee wears a grim face as she admits she hates bothering anyone with her quest. Klee slides beside Leo and softly strokes his fur as she falls into quiet, intense thoughts. Panel. Takumi gazes upward, eyes sharp with doubt, weighing every word Klee just said about that failed search. Klee keeps her fists clenched in her lap, wrestling with raw inner turmoil as she blurts it out, "Fennel M1." Takumi shoots Klee a worried look by the crackling campfire. Panom. Takumi leans in and reassures Klee, grinning as he tells her he's glad she can take the fight out of him. Panel. Cleo flashes a warm smile at Takumi and tells him straight up that he's a genuinely kind soul. Panel. Takumi breaks into laughter, begging Klee to keep their chat under wraps, while Leo throws out a loud bark. Panel. Klee beams a dazzling, grateful smile, thanking both Takumi and Leo before the panel cuts away. A quick transitional shot, treetops slicing across the starry night, like the world just went quiet for a beat. Guard Philip shows up and wastes no time. He steps in and bows formally to Takumi and Lady Klee, then the panel hits. Philip grins as Klee nods, saying it's finally time for her to crash and rest. Panel. Philip finally steps in and takes over Takumi's watch duty, and you get a clear, wider view of the moment it all shifts. Cleo flashes a soft, teasing smile and tells them in a gentle voice to finally get the proper rest. Panel. Klee snaps her head up at the guard panel, eyes wide with surprise and a sharp, thoughtful spark. Philip the guard settles in and flashes Claire a warm smile, soothing her worries in an instant. Claire shoots Philip a shocked look, then heat crawls up her cheeks as she blushes at his loyal words. Panel. A panicked Takumi blurts out to Philip, asking if he caught their private conversation. Takumi nervously blurts that they should take a break, while Klee drops her gaze, stunned into silence. Philip turns his back on the campfire and heads out to take over his night watch duty, right away, panel by panel. Takumi and Leo hover outside the tent, staring in with worried eyes as the moment hangs in the air. Panel. Takumi's hand shoots forward, then stalls midair, fingers trembling as they creep toward the tent flap. Takumi blurts out to Klee the second she starts cracking open her tent. Klee shouts Takumi's name as he strides away from the campfire, right in the middle of the glow. Klee pops a handful of tiny dark, star-shaped herbs into the open panel on Takumi's hand. Takumi tells them the herb helps you sleep, and then he confirms it. Yeah, he brewed it with his gift. Panel. Klee leans in and asks Takumi to spill the details of his research, and he grins and agrees on the spot. PANELM. Beneath a storm-black sky, deep in the dark forest, they trade one last good night before the night swallows them. Panel. Inside the tent, giant wolf Leo is curled up tight, asleep like a stone, fast, deep, and totally out cold. Panel. Juan E. Weinshun. Takumi bolts upright in his sleeping bag, eyes wide and stunned inside his tent. Pan on. Takumi jolts awake and freezes. Sebastian pops up from his sleeping bag, grinning at him as if nothing happened. From behind, Takumi shot a nervous glance at Sebastian and blurted, "Hey, were you actually listening to us?" Sebastian finally cracks and admits he overheard it, stunned by just how deep Klee's worries really go. Lying in his tent, Takumi shoots Sebastian a heartfelt thank you for hearing Klee's worries out. Panolio Chanum. Sebastian turned in his bedroll, grateful for Klee, and let that relief spill out. Panel. From above, Takumi and Sebastian trade a sweet goodnight and head off for the night. A fresh day kicks off as dawn spills across a misty mountain range. Panel. Weissfury. A tight close-up of the raging river, surging by while the crew scrambles to get ready to leave. Panel. Takumi flashes a determined grin and declares, "All right, let's start the search." Panel. What I done one. At the campsite, Takumi slams out instructions and splits the party to start searching. Everyone pairs up and heads out. A tight shot on their boots as the party kicks off and steps onto the forest floor. Panel. Leo and the whole crew push into the dark, tangled woods, step by step as the night closes in. Panel. Sebastian glances back, worried, but Klee flashes a bright grin and tells him she's totally fine. Klee blurts out Takumi's name, staring at him with wide eyes, shock cracking into real concern. Panel. Klee beams and thanks Takumi for the herb, bursting into relief that she feels a ton better. Panel. Sebastian smirks as he watches the fatigue-curing herb kick in on Klee, just like that. Panel. Sebastian cranes his neck up at the dark forest canopy, and the dangerous footing under his feet sends a chill through him. Sebastian says magic would come in clutch, and Takumi shoots back, "What do you mean?" Panel. A glowing orb of magic blasts the dark forest path with light, blindingly bright, then the panel hits. Sebastian grips the light and tells Takumi, "Practice and you'll learn simple magic, like it's just waiting for him." Takumi practically begged Sebastian, "Teach me magic when we get home," and the moment he said it, the panel snapped with pure anticipation. Klee blurts out, all fired up, saying she'll teach Takumi magic herself. Sebastian shoots Klee an awkward smile, then freezes under her stare, hoping she'll finally get the answer she's waiting for. Takumi nervously blurts out, "Am I really worthy to teach this clay magic?" as the panel hits. Sebastian beams as he hands Cleo's magic lessons to a betrayed, flustered Takumi. On the second day, Takumi and Leo link up and stand side by side inside the forest panel. Two armored guards drop to their knees and scour the forest floor with intense focus. A tight panel zooms in on the forest floor on the third day, just dirt, leaves, and that eerie silence. A close-up blooms on the party's crackling campfire at night, sparks popping like tiny fireworks. Sebastian tells Takumi, 3 days in and we still haven't found a thing, then the panel hangs in silence. By the crackling campfire, a crushed Cleus leans in and whispers that the Fenrirs are gone. Panel. Klee's face fills the frame, weariness and pure disappointment glaring from her expression after the search. Panel. The great wolf Leo sinks his head down, and he listens, soaking up every word as someone talks about everyone. Takumi pushes them to hunt for answers for one last day before they call it quits. Sebastian leaned in and asked Klee, "Are you really sure we should stop now?" Klee's smile turns bittersweet as she tells everyone they've done more than enough for her selfish plea, then pan on. The guards start worrying out loud. How can they keep searching when everyone's running on pure exhaustion? Takumi thinks everyone already understands Klee's worries, and he's ready to jump in and help her. Panel Washo Mickey. Takumi watches Klee's soft smile and realizes, right then and there, that her staff truly adores her. Panel. Takumi sits alone in the deep quiet, wrestling with one question in his head: how the heck is he going to clear his quest? Panel. A quick transitional panel snaps to the forest canopy, signaling the next day has officially kicked off. The next day, an utterly drained Takumi slumps against a tree, trembling with exhaustion as he pants like his lungs are about to give out. Takumi locks eyes with Leo, determination burning in his gaze, and fires off the question, "What are we doing next?" Panel. Takumi tells Leo point blank, he's not going back home empty-handed. Leo beams and slaps a paw onto the confused Takumi's shoulder, then barks out loud encouragement like, "You've got this." Panel. Takumi's eyes snap wide open as the memory hits him, his weed cultivation gift. Confident as ever, Takumi lays out his wild plan, growing weed to lift everyone up. Panel. Takumi whips his gaze toward the stunned Sebastian and the listening Cleo, deep in the forest. Panel. Clee's face fills the panel, eyes wide, mouth half open, surprise and worry crashing over her as she speaks. Takumi steps up to the whole party and blurts out that he forgot something crucial for their quest, like the kind that could change everything. Takumi leans in and tells the guards his power can wipe out every bit of fatigue. Then the panel hits. A guard squints and grills, wondering if Takumi's herbs can really help them track down what they're searching for. Panel. Takumi clenches his fist and fires back with raw resolve. Time is slipping away, and they're out of chances. Takumi beams at a cheerful Leo, thanking him because the wolf's help snapped his memory back and reminded him of what he truly can do. Takumi clenches his fist, burning with determination to prove his research results, right here. Panel. Takumi slams his palm into the ground, and with that single punch, his power ignites. Panel. With his weed cultivation gift, Takumi snaps herbs into existence. Bam, right there on the panel. Takumi throws his success in Sebastian's face, and Sebastian just freezes, staring in total disbelief. Panel. Takumi plucks a fresh leaf from the herb patch he just planted, right for the next shot. Panel. Takumi thrusts the freshly grown herbs at the rest of the battered party, like a lifeline in the middle of exhaustion. Panel. Clee hesitates, then bites down on the mysterious herb Takumi just offered. Panel. The party gasps in shock as the herb wipes away their exhaustion in a blink, pure instant relief. Satisfied with what he's done, Takumi lifts another herb, ready to hand it over. Panel. As night settles in, Clee corners Takumi and demands he snuff out his light spell. Sebastian shrugs off the forest's bad visibility like it's nothing, and then the panel hits. A huge panel opens on a dark, thick forest. Something terrifying is about to hit, and you can feel it coming. A speech bubble flashes. Takumi is seconds away from using that medicinal herb, right as the panel hits. Takumi grins at Clee and Sebastian, confident as ever, ready to unleash his gift. Panel. Clee's eyes snap into focus. Shock hits, realization follows, and then she blurts out, "Penny fine." Clee stares in awe, trying to make sense of what's happening to her. Clee's eyes go huge as she blurts out, "I can suddenly see perfectly." The whole group shoots their heads up in awe as the forest suddenly flares to life with magical light. As the forest flares with magic light, Clee perks up, something's shifted in her hearing, and the rustling feels different. Panel. Takumi breaks into a smile, and the surprise on her face confirms it. This herb just hit its second effect. Clee tilts her head into the pitch-black forest, her brow furrowing as she wonders what's in the herbs they gave her. Panel. Takumi breaks down what the two herbs do, and Sebastian and Leo hang on every word as the panel clicks into place. Cleo suddenly realizes she can feel nearby creatures and even hear them coming, right there, in the panel. Fresh hope sparks in Clee's eyes. She clenches her fist and swears she'll win today. Panel. Takumi and Leo cut through the thick, twisting forest like they own the path, while the whole crew follows close behind. Panel. Sebastian leans in and tells a brooding Cleo that the sun's starting to sink fast. A razor-close shot of Clee's eye locks in on that fierce, unshakable focus as she stares down the chaos. The whole group jumps at Leo's sudden, thunderous barking, and I'm right there with him, ready to make some noise. Takumi whips around to Leo, demanding to know what's wrong, while the wolf keeps barking like it's warning them. Takumi deciphers Leo's warning, and before they even breathe easy, he tells everyone the truth. Monsters are up ahead and already closing in. Takumi blurts out to the panting Cleo as Leo's urgent barks cut through the chaos. Panel. A stunned Clee blurts out that she's finally nailed the Fenrirs, right at last, to her pound. Sebastian and Augard whip their heads toward Takumi, their faces stuck between shock and deep worry. A guard locks in on Leo's razor-sharp senses, realizing the herb's power has turned his awareness up to full blast. Panel. Takumi's face tightens as he stares ahead thinking, are Fenrirs really out there in that forest panel, or is this all a trick? Leo snaps at Takumi with urgent barks, and just like that, Takumi realizes the Fenrir are under attack. Panel. Takumi demanded what kind of monster would dare strike a Fenrir. Sebastian guessed it could be trolls. Panel. Takumi tells me trolls don't stand a chance against Fenders unless they swarm in numbers. Look, panel time and I'll show you. Sebastian confirms the monsters are trolls, right on the panel, and yep, there are 5 of them. Clee firmly declares they have to help the Fenrirs, even as the guards protest and push back. A guard blusters to Clee that they're finished, saying they can't possibly stand up to 5 trolls, and he's dead wrong. A thunderous rumble blasts through the panel, power surges, and everything shifts fast, like the momentum is swelling to epic levels. Klee snapped her gaze up, stunned and hopeful all at once, eyes wide as the moment hit Panelm. Takumi grins and basically tells Leo, "You're set, let's go," confirming he's fully ready to throw down. Cleo dips into a deep bow to Leo, formally asking for his help, while Leo blurts out the loudest yes like he can't wait panel. A huge, razor-sharp sound effect snaps onto the page, like something just rocketed across the panel at unbelievable speed. Takumi thrusts a finger forward and yells at Leo to charge ahead into the fight. Panel. The whole crew barrels through the forest, and Takumi feels Leo smashing trolls ahead, right as the panel hits. Takumi grins with pride and sheer shock, sensing Leo's insane power, and he knows she's going to realize it too. Bursting into the clearing, Takumi calls out Leo's name with panic in his voice, spotting him sprawled over a fallen Fenrir. In a forest clearing, Takumi strides ahead while Leo spins around, desperate for attention like it's a game. Panel. Takumi whips around, eyes wide with shock, and shouts Leo's name, Panel. A high-angle shot snaps into view. Two lifeless Fenrir bodies lie crumpled on the ground. A tight close-up lingers on the bare ground, because the monster's body is suddenly gone. Panel. The monster's remains hiss and steam away, then vanish into nothing, gone like it never even existed. Panel. Takumi, Klee, and Sebastian gasp and stare down in disbelief. There's nothing there at all. Panel. Takumi snapped at Leo. What happened? While the wolf stayed perfectly calm nearby, then the panel cut away and we jumped straight to the next moment. Cleo snaps her eyes to Takumi, her face packed with worry, and demands to know what's going on with the Fenrir's panel. A tight close-up on Leo's calm eye as he stares down at whatever's in front of him. Panel. Leo dips his head and gently sniffs the discarded clothing like he's hunting for clues. Takumi stares him down with a grim face, then snaps, "Leo, what did you find?" as the panel clicks into place. Klee's face snaps into a chilling close-up, eyes wide, hands clamped over her mouth in pure, stunned horror. Panel. An injured Fenrir pup sprawls on the ground, eyes squeezed shut in agony, then the panel hits. Klee's eyes widened in sheer horror as she stared at the bloodied, beaten Fenrir pup panel. Leo sits in grim silence behind the dead adult Fenrir as Cleo breaks down, mourning the tragedy panel. Klee, Sebastian, and Takumi stare in total disbelief as the tragic scene panel hits them all at once. Sebastian's face snaps into a grim close-up as he takes one look at the deadly situation, panel by panel. Sebastian drops to his knees to check on the injured pup, while Leo and Cleo stare on, wringing their hands in panic. A gentle hand settles on the wounded Fenrir pup's fur, soothing them with a comforting touch. Panel. Klee shoots a desperate look at Sebastian, begging him to tell her if there's any way at all to help. A tight close-up on Sebastian's eye, there's no hiding it, grim worry is written all over his face. That tiny, wounded Fenrir pup lifts its head, staring up with wide, trembling eyes like it's bracing for the worst. Panel T. Sebastian drops a brutal diagnosis, and the pain in his eyes turns into bitter resignation. Panel. The whole group closes in around the dying pup as Sebastian's voice breaks with pure hopelessness. Panel. Horrified Klee blurts out her worst despair when she lays eyes on Fenrir like this. What on earth happened? A razor-sharp close-up on the silver Fenrir. Leo's eye flares as he whines, right before the next panel hits. Leo stares at Takumi with steel in his eyes, determined to help. Panel. Leo carefully nudges the wounded pup, refusing to give up on saving its life. Panel. Klee pleads, frantic, asking if there's any way to save that poor pup. Takumi sensed Sebastian's mind, racing back to the rope plant's instant healing magic. Sebastian hesitated, because even he knew Ro might not be able to mend wounds that brutal. He stared at Takumi, desperate to know what they could possibly do for that dying pup. Takumi suddenly clocked that his know-how about the Ro plant could lead the way. He vowed to craft an herb so strong it could stitch back a dying person from a fatal wound. He pressed his palm to the earth, and right before his eyes, a brand new, powerful herb sprang up like it had been waiting. He slammed down on the thick leaf, crushing it until the sticky, healing jelly gushed out. A thick, potent substance oozed from his fingers as he geared up to pack the poultice. He spun toward a panicked Klee and shot her a confident look, swearing everything was going to be okay. He strode up to the tiny, wounded Fenrir pup, pinned to the ground and utterly helpless. He sucked in a deep breath, then locked in, ready to face the huge task waiting just ahead. Leo watched, heart pounding, as Takumi got ready to press that magical herb into place. He carefully smoothed the poultice over the pup's wound, sealing it with a soothing press. The miraculous healing substance slowly soaked into the injured creature's fur, rushing relief into every strand. A brilliant, ethereal burst of light erupted from the pup, flooding the whole clearing in a glowing halo. The light surged brighter and brighter, pulsing like it had a living heartbeat, pouring warmth into the world. The Fenrir pup's ragged breaths finally smoothed out, settling into a calm, peaceful rhythm. Sebastian's eyes went wide with total disbelief, like he couldn't even believe what he was seeing. He stammered out, "I can't believe this," as the pup's breathing finally steadied. He stared in disbelief as the creature's wounds stitched themselves shut right before his eyes, like a miracle he couldn't explain. He whirled toward Takumi and announced, loud and certain, that the pup was healed, completely, no doubt left. Takumi glanced back, and a gentle, relieved smile lit up his face. Leo Bark burst into triumph as Klee blurted out that Takumi was absolutely amazing. Takumi just shrugged and said it was all thanks to a little luck. Still, he couldn't help but feel a surge of pure relief. He'd saved that little creature after all. Sebastian, all business and zero fuss, snatched a blanket and wrapped it around the recovering pup. He told them the puppy had drained of its strength, and it needed to be kept warm right now, or it wouldn't make it. The pup's ear flicked at the slightest sound, and it stayed curled up, cozy and perfectly still inside that warm blanket. Sebastian clocked it instantly. The Fenrir was still basically a kid, even if it was absolutely massive. During the troll attack, he guessed it got torn from its pack when everything went chaos. He said it was time to hit the road and head back to camp. Klee stared at him, demanding to know what fate was waiting for the young Fenrir. Leo let out a quiet little whimper that instantly snagged Takumi's attention. Leo barked like he meant business, clearly telling Takumi, "This is what I want." Takumi leaned in hard, catching every silent hint his partner was begging him to understand. He told the whole group that Leo was determined to bring Fenrir back home. Cleo's eyes snapped wide with shock at the sudden, unexpected suggestion. She shot out an immediate yes. She was all in on Leo's idea. Sebastian shot him down at once, insisting Fenrirs are born ferocious, raging monsters with no room for doubt. Cleo begged him with everything she had, but Sebastian stayed stubbornly on guard. Takumi stepped in and said he was all in too. He agreed to take the pup. He leans in and asks Sebastian if he remembers the talk they had before they step into the forest. He reminded him Leo had promised them Fenrir would never come after him. He swore that a Fenrir would never, ever bow to a silver Fenrir. Sebastian weighed Takumi's words, and his tough facade softened just a little. He finally admitted that Takumi's point was 100% solid. Klee tried to thank him, but Sebastian shot up a hand and stopped her. He wasn't done yet. He laid down the rule: if the pup ever hurts a soul, they'll kick it out on the spot. Klee grinned and signed on the dotted line, while Takumi and Leo watched her like it was the start of something huge. With the dust finally settled, Sebastian grinned and told them to head back to camp. Klee tenderly stroked the pup and smiled. "We did it, our quest is a success." Takumi couldn't help but think she'd probably been dreaming of running into a silver Fenrir. Klee's hand settled softly on the sleeping pup's silky white fur. She pressed the tiny creature to her chest and whispered, "You're safe now." She shot Leo a question: "Is it cool if I carry the pup?" Leo watched, a soft smile lighting up his face as Klee cradled the little pup in her arms. Takumi couldn't believe how fiercely Leo cared for the young Fenrir. He couldn't stop wondering, did Leo spot his own past hiding inside that abandoned creature? Klee clutched the little pup close, her face calm and softly smiling like everything was finally right. She spun back to the group and declared, "All right, time to pack up, let's go home." Night crashed over the forest, and the stars above sparkled like they were daring the dark to blink first. Back at camp, the guards froze in shock when they saw the creature cradled in Klee's arms. Klee told him it was a tiny, adorable Fenrir pup, one Leo had rescued with his own hands. Two guards went stone still, their mouths hanging open in sheer, jaw-dropping shock. The pup's eyes snapped open, and in a blink it realized it was wide awake in a place it had never seen before. Klee leaned in and asked if it was awake, but the pup jolted at every new sound and shadow around it. It started thrashing wildly, and its face twisted into a full-on mask of pure terror. It burst into a string of sharp, high-pitched yelps, frantically trying to claw its way out. Klee leaned in and gently promised the pup, "Lee will protect you." She swore right to the frightened creature's face that she wasn't there to hurt it, she meant no harm at all. Leo crept up and chattered to the pup in a string of gentle barks. Takumi stared as the two creatures traded words like they were having a real, heated conversation. The campfire crackled like it was roaring, spilling a golden glow across the clearing. The guards just stared in disbelief. Somehow they managed to haul back a Fenrir pup. Ebola's food was dropped in front of the now calm creature. The pup tore into the food like it hadn't eaten in days, while everyone kicked back around the fire, finally letting the tension melt. Takumi slumped against a huge tree, eyes locked on the calm, peaceful world in front of him. He stared at his new life, clutching a silver Fenrir pup like it had just stolen his heart. He sat there thinking, and it hit him. His dream of a calm, slow life felt farther away than it ever had. The very next morning, sunlight blasted through the forest canopy, turning the whole place into a glowing battlefield. The party pushed deeper into the woods, racing through the last brutal stretch of the path. They burst to the forest's edge, and Klee beamed as she announced, "We're back." A guard spotted them in a flash, and burst with relief, overjoyed that they'd come back safe and sound. The guard's eyes widened when he realized they'd come back way earlier than anyone expected. Sebastian wryly shot back that they'd only tracked down a little of what they'd been praying to find. The guard went totally blank, then stared at the Fenrir pup cradled in Klee's arms. Sebastian told him they'd saved a harmless Fenrir, and somehow the pup just got it. They rushed up to the waiting carriage, itching to roll back to the villa. Takumi suddenly realized the carriage was way too narrow. There was no way all of them could squeeze inside. Klee asked what was wrong, and he brushed it off with a jittery smile that screamed nerves. He proposed they ride Leo, while Klee and Layla grabbed the carriage and took off. A Fenrir pup suddenly shot into his arms, then clung tight, refusing to let him leave it behind. Takumi jumped back in surprise as the puppy clung to him, showering him with sweet, affectionate love. Cleo broke into a smile, because the little pup couldn't stop soaking up his vibe. Takumi leaned in and asked the pup if it was really true, and the little thing burst into a happy yip. Leo watched wide-eyed as Takumi cradled the sweet young Fenrir with pure affection. Layla's voice trembled as she nervously asked, "Can I ride Leo too?" She stared ahead with a hopeful flicker in her eyes, nerves tightening in her chest. Takumi nodded and told her that Leo was totally cool with it, then he helped her back on her feet. With everyone geared up, Sebastian blared that they were heading to the villa, right now. The carriage wheels kept clattering in a steady beat as they tore toward home. The tough coach thundered down the dirt road, dragging the forest into the past. Klee couldn't help but grin at how snug the little carriage felt, and Takumi nodded right along with her. He couldn't help but smile as he remembered how his tiny pup, Leo, always crashes into the tightest little spaces to sleep. Their carriage tore across the endless rolling hills of Revolt territory. Right on the horizon, the magnificent gates of the grand villa finally burst into view. Leo's eyes shot wide open, and every instinct in him screamed to get ready. The great wolf braked right in front of the gate, muscles locked tight, eyes snapping in every direction. He planted himself on the hilltop, chest out, soaking in every inch of his brand new domain. From the window, Takumi and Cleo leaned in, staring at Leo, dying to know what he was up to. He sucked in a deep breath, and his powerful chest swelled like it was about to burst. A bone-chilling howl ripped across the whole landscape, loud enough to make the earth feel it. Klee and the Fenrir pup jumped as a sudden, bone-rattling cry tore through the air. A guard wrestled with the reins, trying to soothe panicked horses as the sudden blast sent them rearing and spooking in terror. Inside, the pup burst into excited, high-pitched yips. Leo kept talking on the phone, tipping his head back toward the sky like he was chasing an answer. Inside the carriage, the pup burst into its own excited howls, matching the energy like it couldn't help itself. With a bone-deep final boom, Leo's mighty howl finally cut out. Takumi, utterly baffled, blurted out, "So the weird back-and-forth is over now." Klee slowly traced the spot, then leaned in and demanded to know what on earth it was all about. Sebastian couldn't help but wonder out loud, was that silver Fenrir's howl a warning meant just for him? Leo finally settled in, and with one calm breath, his territory was claimed in silence. Takumi suddenly figured out the howls weren't random at all, they were how they spoke to each other. He remembered it, Leo talking to the pup like he understood every word. The pup tilted its head up to Lee, eyes locked on her like it was ready to hear every word. Cleo nodded, and you could tell right away it absolutely looked like a real conversation unfolding. Takumi leaned out the window and called straight to his partner. He leaned in and demanded that Leo explain what the howling even meant. He read out Leo's message, and then he made it crystal clear this land belonged to him now. Takumi finally got it. This wasn't just a message, it was a formal claim sealing his domain. Then he turned to his partner and demanded to know what the Fenrir pup had replied. The pup he brought over couldn't wait. He begged to join Leo's pack with pure, non-stop excitement. Takumi whipped his head toward Klee, and the look on his face made it clear This was the conversation they'd been having. Klee couldn't stop thinking that the howl was a huge ceremony made to welcome a brand new packmate. She realized the tiny pup had finally stopped fidgeting and fully settled in. A warm, knowing smile slipped onto her lips, like she already saw what was coming. Now that the pup was officially one of the pack, it curled up and slept like it finally belonged. As soon as they arrived, the staff greeted them like family, blasting a grand chorus of welcome. Takumi flashed a smile, still blown away by the sheer formality of the reception. Klee leaned in and gently begged the staff to hush their voices for the pup. The tiny Fenrir curled up to sleep, and the chaos around it couldn't even scratch its peace. Tilla bolted out, yelling for her sister and calling her name the way Takumi would. She burst into a bright smile and yelled, "Welcome home," as the group finally came back. Cleo beamed at her younger sister and greeted her with a warm, loving smile. Tilla's eyes locked on the sleeping creature cradled in Cleo's arms, and they pounced instantly. Cleo leaned in and told me they'd rescued a Fenrir pup from the forest. Tilla was completely smitten, blurting out that the tiny Fenrir was absolutely adorable. Cleo leaned in and gently reminded her to keep her voice down. She said the pup was hurt and needed serious rest right away. Tilla dropped her gaze and pouted, apologizing with that "I messed up" look after her outburst. Cleo leaned over to a nearby maid and told her, straight up, that she was taking the pup to her room. Then the maid snapped her attention to Takumi and demanded to know what he was about to do. Takumi froze for a heartbeat, weighing his next move like it could decide everything. He bolted to his room and tore off his travel-worn clothes. The maid leaned in and offered to whip up some tea for him in the guest room. Takumi shouted at Leo, telling his partner it was time to bail and get going. Later, Takumi dashed back to his room, feeling completely refreshed. Cheerful maid Gerda beamed at him and welcomed him back with open, warm arms. He took a sip of her tea and lit up, praising it like it was pure magic. Clea and Tilla showed up in a flash, breathless with apologies, telling him they'd made him wait. They traded quick pleasantries, finally breathing easy now that the grueling trek through the forest was done. Right there, Tilla was laughing her head off as she played with Leo inside the pub. She was over the moon that the tiny Fenrir finally stirred awake. Clea told him the moment she slipped back into her room, it sprang to life right away. She let out a cute, amused giggle that just burst out of her. She pictured the pup jolting with surprise at how grand the place was. It had been prowling every nook and cranny of the room like it was hunting for something. She blurted out that its curious little nature was downright adorable. Takumi grinned, fully agreeing. Somehow he could just imagine how adorable that must have looked. Then it hit him, his promise to Cleo, and he knew he had to finally spill the truth about his gift. He stopped for a breath, trying to figure out the perfect way to kick off the wild story he couldn't wait to tell. Out of nowhere, a violent wave of dizziness crashed into him, stealing his balance in an instant. Cleo's voice rang out his name, and his vision started to blur and rattle like the world was slipping away. He could hear their panic screaming loud and clear, but his mouth wouldn't work, and he couldn't answer back. He crumpled to the ground, and a brutal flashback to his burnout stormed his mind like a nightmare. He jolted awake, feeling weightless, like his body had been dropped into the sky. His eyes snapped open, blinking like they just fought their way back from the dark. He got greeted by Clee and the others bursting out in relieved cries. He asked what was wrong, and Sebastian snapped that he'd just collapsed. Memory slammed back. He'd been chatting with Cleo when it all hit. Still spinning from the shock, he finally managed to mumble a "good morning," like it might set the world right. Clee's worried face melted into a bright, warm smile. Leo erupted with joy and tackled him in a whirlwind of slobbery licks. Takumi yelped as his overly clingy partner latched onto him, and he frantically fought them off. Sebastian said Leo had been so on edge, he wouldn't leave his side for a second. Takumi chuckled through a weak breath as the affectionate onslaught kept coming. Tilla giggled and pointed out the weird way they'd managed to wake him up. Clee asked if he could sit up, and after a whole week of fighting through it, he finally managed. Yes, he could. Later, they piled into the guest room and tore into what just happened. Cleoport poured a cup of tea, her face set in stone. She leaned in and asked, "Can you remember anything at all from before you blacked out?" He remembered it right back in that same room, right after they got home, the conversation still ringing in his head. He told me how his vision abruptly smeared out of focus, then slipped away into total darkness. Cleo leaned in, eyes locked on every word, and you could practically feel how terrifying it must have been. Sebastian then laid out a terrifying theory. The whole collapse happened because of his gift. He dug up ancient texts that screamed about one deadly truth: overusing your gifts always brings disaster. Takumi's eyes went wide when he realized the others had crumpled under the weight of their own powers. Sebastian explained this wasn't mana at all, it was a special power, and he said it was probably already drained. Takumi pressed, "Tell me, does a power source like that really exist?" Sebastian admitted something terrifying: because gift wielders are so rare, the research has barely got anywhere to go. They replay the talk they had back then in their head, like it just happened. Sebastian tells Takumi's group that his collapse happened because of his gift. Takumi slumped back at home, still in disbelief as doubt flooded his mind. Sebastian breaks down his research into what gifts really are and what makes them tick. Takumi leans in, weighing how long that gift will truly last and what it could mean. With a sharp, knowing stare, Sebastian starts laying out his big hypothesis. He leans in and tells you the gift's power doesn't stop once the plant is born. Tilla pressed, "Wait, wasn't that herb the one that healed the pup?" Sebastian proves the herb is glowing, something ordinary rose never have. Takumi suddenly lights up with the memory of that glow and admits he never even thought about it before. Sebastian then drops another vital piece of the puzzle, and the whole mystery suddenly clicks. Right after Takumi hit the floor and blacked out, the recovering Fenrir pup suddenly faltered too and crumpled into weakness. The pup is finally healthy again, and it still stuns everyone with that miracle one-day recovery. A diagram spells out the power surging from Takumi, flooding the pup with the energy that keeps its healing going. Takumi finally gets it. Sebastian makes it crystal clear: it's nothing more than a theory. Klee, eyes full of worry, pressed him to stay away from using his gift. Takumi realizes that even with the danger hanging over him, his power is still exactly what he needs. With a fierce look, Klee shuts him down cold. No way he's overdoing it. Takumi flashes a warm smile and thanks her for showing such real concern. Klee leans in and fires off. "So what happened with those garden experiments I asked you about earlier?" He flashes back to the very first time he put his weed cultivating skills to the test. He tells you he cooked up a brand new plant, one that never even showed up in his book. He ditched the mysterious leaf on the table, but Leo snatched it up and devoured it that very night. At the memory, Leo bursts into a joyful string of excited barks, like he's cheering for something awesome. Takumi keeps talking as Klee and Sebastian lean in, eyes locked on every word. Leo barks once more, basically proving that this accident just turned into his favorite treat. Takumi says that the second Leo took a bite, energy surged through him like a switch flipped. Klee lights up with pure joy, because he just realized he brewed a stamina herb so powerful it could change everything. Takumi breaks down how this discovery unlocks a brand new truth about his power. Whenever he cracks open a book, he can't help but picture a whole platform in his mind. Klee demands, "What are you talking about?" because he never told her what this herb even looks like. Sebastian suddenly realizes Takumi can conjure any plant he wants, just by imagining what it would do. Tilla erupted in the puppy crowd, cheering at the top of her lungs about how unbelievably incredible Takumi is. Sebastian warns that this insane power can unleash real danger too. Takumi just grins and promises he'll think it through, properly and all the way. Klee leans in and tells him she still wants him to brew up herbs for them to sell. Takumi straightens up and throws a deep, formal bow, then takes her proposal with a crisp, respectful nod. He agrees right away, as long as he can stay standing and not fall apart again. Klee's eyes practically sparkle as pure joy floods his face the moment he's accepted. She grabs his hands and, with tears in her eyes, thanks him for the whole ducal house. Klee beams and tells Sebastian, "We've got to talk to my father now." Sebastian leans in and reminds her that the Duke won't be swayed that easily. With fire in her eyes, Klee steels herself and commits to confronting her father. Sebastian ignited with resolve, swearing he'd back her with everything he had. Then Takumi snaps back and realizes the Fenrir pup he saved still doesn't have a name. Sebastian admits it's a total pain not having a name for it. Takumi says maybe giving the pup a real name will make it feel right at home. Sebastian tells them, "Let's start by figuring out the pup's gender first." Klee softly calls out, and that little pup perks up and happily trots right over to her. Sebastian leans in and carefully inspects the tiny creature while Klee cradles it in her hands. He declares that pup is a girl, and it has Till grinning from ear to ear. Cleo stares down at the little pup, stuck in her head, searching for the perfect name. She gently pets its head, and then bam, new inspiration ignites in her glowing eyes. She leans down and tells the little pup she's going to hunt down the one name that fits it perfectly. Sebastian can't help but gush. He's itching to name the little pup Nikamaru. Klee shuts his idea down on the spot, snapping that it's not a girl's name. Takumi softly pats the heartbroken butler on the back, offering comfort when he needs it most. Klee's face lights up as she announces the choice she's finally made. She names the pup Sherry because that name means the one who is loved. She stands up with purpose and declares to the Fenrir, "From this moment on, I'm Sherry." Sherry yips with pure happiness, fully embracing her new name like it was always hers. Suddenly, a blinding, brilliant light flares up right between the two. Cleo's eyes blow wide with shock as the magical light surges brighter and brighter. That sudden flash of light makes Curia jerk back hard in pure shock. Sebastian and Tilla lock eyes, stunned as magic erupts in front of them like a miracle. The whole room gets drenched in this eerie, otherworldly glow, so bright it jolts everyone to attention. Bright columns of light blasts erupt and flood the room with raw power. Klee shuts her eyes and soaks in the blazing warmth of the magical light. As the light dies out, she can't stop staring. What on earth just happened? Takumi is just as baffled, staring at the strange phenomenon like it's got answers, and he needs them now. The whole crew stares at the pup, trying to piece together what just happened. Takumi shot Leo a question, then realized he had the same confusion on his face, like he didn't know what happened either. Sebastian's eyes flare wide as it clicks. This is a contract he's seen before. Cleo stares, completely blown away, as the wild idea finally hits her. Sebastian breaks it down. When a monster agrees to take a name, that's when the contract gets forged. He declares that their brand new bond is real, because that brilliant light was the proof. Takumi finally gets it. This is what it truly means to have someone you can call your own. Cleo stared at Sherry, eyes wide as she demanded, out of pure disbelief, if Sherry was really her new familiar now. Tilla stared in awe, wishing, so badly, that she had a familiar of her own. Cleo beams at Takumi and credits him for everything that just happened. She's sure that without his help, she never would have tracked Sherry down. Takumi tries to keep things humble, but Sherry's loud, thrilled barks bulldoze right over him. He drops to his knees, beaming, and admits he's just so relieved to see the pup this healthy. The very next morning, bright sunlight blasts through the windows like it owns the place. Takumi stretches, blinking awake after a night of calm, dream-filled sleep. He jolts upright in bed, then flashes a warm good morning to his sleepy Leo. Later, he stumbles on the household staff swarming around in strange, non-stop chaos. He blurts out, wondering if something extraordinary is going down today. He strides into the grand, spotless dining hall meant for breakfast, and there's not a soul in sight. He and Leo brighten up the whole place, beaming and calling out good morning to everyone. Klee, already seated at the table, shot back his greeting with a dazzling, beaming smile. Takumi realizes Tilla's gone, and Klee blurts out that she's curled up asleep. Takumi blurts out that he wants to jump back into weed cultivation again. Klee's smile vanishes, and a serious look snaps onto her face as she drops the bombshell that something big is happening right now. The camera climbs that massive staircase, and the tension skyrockets with every step. With a tense, scared stare, she blurts out that her father is on his way. Takumi's frozen. He can barely squeeze out a shaky, confused question. They reveal it. Her father is the Duke, the ruthless head of the revolt house. Sebastian blurts out that a messenger just arrived, and the Duke is on his way to come see Klee. He grabbed Takumi and demanded he relive the moment he first stumbled on Cleo all by herself in the forest. Sebastian, face grim as stone, admits he did it only as a precaution. Takumi watches, stunned, because the butler didn't go through anyone else. He straight up called the Duke. Sebastian makes it crystal clear. Once Cleo was safe, he wasted no time and sent another message. Cleo lets out a shaky sigh, because she can tell her father is already on his way. Takumi, swallowed by the unease in their faces, blurts out, "Why are you all acting like this?" Cleo and Sebastian waited on edge, knowing her father was about to walk in and start firing off marriage proposals. Takumi, all innocent, asks her if she can just refuse every single one of them. "Of course I'll do it," Cleo snaps back, her determination burning like wildfire. She snaps that Tilla is way too young for all this. And she's got zero plans to ever get married, none, not even a little. Sebastian steps in and reminds everyone that the Duke has to meet Takumi, right there, to hash out the business. Takumi's nerves spike out of nowhere as he blurts that he knows absolutely nothing about noble etiquette. Cleo bursts into laughter, then reassures him that her dad is way more laid back than anyone would expect. Sebastian leans in and says the Duke is basically pure boisterous chaos. Takumi can't help but wonder, what kind of person is this loud, booming Duke under all that swagger? When Tilla heard the news, she went stone still, fear and worry crashing through her all at once. Her eyes are huge and bright, flashing pure excitement while her nerves still shake underneath. Takumi sits with the mess of family dynamics he stumbled into, and it's hitting him hard. A lightning bolt idea suddenly hits him while he's sitting alone in his room. He leaned in to Layla, the maid, and asked if his outfit was fitting. Layla figures the Duke won't care, but then she flashes him a smart idea. She throws him right back to that custom suit he ordered in Raktos. Right, Takumi yells, springing up to his feet like he's about to strike. He decides those clothes are exactly what the moment calls for. Layla quickly realizes that if Leo takes the ride, the whole trip will blow by at lightning speed. She flashes a grin and says, "If we hurry, we've got plenty of time." Takumi flips his mood to yes the moment he hears Layla wants to tag along with him. She tells him she has to go no matter what, she's got to pay the tailor for him. Takumi, stunned by the sudden duty, dropped his formal composure and asked her, straight up, to come with him. Layla nods politely, then settles in on Leo's back right behind Takumi. With a thunderous leap, Leo rockets them away from the villa. They race across the bright sky, with fluffy clouds drifting overhead as they keep moving at full speed. Soon they burst into the town's lively, bustling streets, where everything is loud, bright, and alive. Leo's eyes lit up like fireworks when he spotted a sausage stall. The giant wolf chomps down his treat with pure joy as they stride through the street. Leela locks eyes on their destination and somehow steals Takumi's focus the instant it comes into view. "It's right over there," she yells, jabbing a finger at that charming little building like it's calling her name. Taylor Halton breaks into a warm smile the second they step into his shop, welcoming them like their family. He beams as Takumi arrives and tells him the clothes he ordered are finally ready. Takumi lets out a breath of relief, grinning because they made it right on time. Layla leans in and whispers that they somehow slipped in just before the meeting started. They slam back into the Grand Revolt Villa with just seconds left to breathe. Takumi shows off his brand new dashing look and bursts out, announcing their triumphant return. Klee lights up the room with a radiant smile and greets them both, welcoming them home. She praises his fresh outfit and drops a hint that he must have gone straight to Raktos. Takumi's eyes light up as he beams at her, thanking her from the bottom of his heart for those kind words. Sebastian's smile drops, and a stern calm settles in as he tells everyone the Duke is here. He blurts out a sharp, startled, clear message. Everything's going exactly as planned. Every single household staff member packs into the grand entrance hall, all lined up and ready. The head maid throws the doors open and blurts out, "Duke Eckenhart Revo is here." Takumi suddenly clicks. This unstoppable dude has to be the head of the house. Duke Eckenhart, pure gravity in human form, strides into the hall. A staff member rushes up to him, throws out a heartfelt apology, and admits they panicked and had him worried. Klee and Tilla threw open the door, greeted their father as he came home, and you could practically hear the weight lift off their hearts. The Duke, eyes shining with emotion, blurts out that Klee has somehow gotten even more beautiful. Clear shoots him a sharp reminder. He's about to make a scene right in front of everyone. Sebastian tells them the Duke got word that she was safe while she was still on the way. The Duke wipes away a tear and admits he kicked his horse into a sprint to get ahead. Klee's heart swells when she realizes how deeply her father's worry for her runs. The Duke's eyes snap to a total stranger, an unfamiliar young man standing there. Klee steps in and introduces Takumi, the hero who came in and saved her. Takumi strides up, ready to make a proper introduction and officially put his name out there. He snaps into a deep, respectful bow and announces, loud and proud, "I'm Hiroka Takumi." The Duke tells him right to his face, "Just call me Takumi," then sizes him up like he's already decided what kind of man he is. His hard, stern face suddenly cracks into a grin as he thanks Takumi with overwhelming, heartfelt enthusiasm. The Duke's eyes pinch to a sharp, suspicious slit as he sizes the young man up. He slaps a clap onto Kumi's shoulder, and you can tell he's genuinely impressed the kid doesn't even flinch. Tilla softly tells her father, "Hey, your grip's probably hurting." The Duke's eyes snap to the sudden movement right at his feet. He spots the tiny Fenrir pup, Sherry, crouched in the shadows, peeking out like it's daring him to come closer. His mind spins like a pinwheel, snapping the pup straight to the silver Fenrir in the report. A sharp gasp rips out of him as a terrifying realization hits him like a thunderclap. His gaze whips back and forth between the legendary Leo and the tiny Fenrir pup. He slams down onto the ground and barks that everyone better show him the respect he deserves. Klee and Tilla freeze in stunned disbelief as their father's behavior goes completely off the rails. The Duke drops into a deep, formal bow and introduces himself to Leo like it's a matter of honor. Takumi freezes in pure shock as the terrifying noble drops to his knees in front of him. Cleo begs her father to stand up, insisting with total confidence that Leo is perfectly fine. Takumi jumps in, hounding the Duke to his feet, begging him to stand up. Sebastian steps in, puts everything back in line, and tells them, "All right, come on, we're taking this conversation inside." The Duke grunts as he hauls himself up, finally climbing out of the marble floor. Sherry, the Fenrir pup, sneaks out from behind the door and peeks around like she's up to something. The Duke leans in as Cleo shouts the pup's name, Sherry. Cleo beams with pride as she proudly presents Sherry as her brand new Fenrir familiar. The Duke suddenly realizes they've got a mountain of things to talk about. In the parlor, the Duke leans in, eyes blazing, and listens like their incredible story might change everything. He nods and it hits him. He finally gets the whole situation. With Leo standing right there, he declares their wild, unbelievable story has to be true. But then he pressed, "So you're saying Leo really isn't hostile toward people, for real?" Takumi grins and tells him, "Don't worry, Leo's super friendly and gentle." He whips around to his partner and demands, "Tell me I'm right, Leo." The Duke shuts his eyes, letting Takumi's heartfelt reassurance finally sink in. He shoots up off the sofa like a switch flipped, burning with fresh purpose. He drops into a deep bow and formally asks Leo for his acquaintance. Then his mood snaps and Clear flinches hard, bracing for what's coming next. He beams and proudly declares, "I brought even more marriage proposals." He pushes his daughters to go meet the chosen young men, just once, no matter what. Takumi just stands there, utterly stunned as everything flips on him in an instant. The Duke leans in and tells him to ditch the formal address, because that's not how he does things. Takumi leaned in and asked the Duke, "Why won't you let this marriage business go?" Duke Eckenhart stares at Takumi with a face full of hurt and asks, "Didn't you ever hear this story?" He whips around to his daughter and drives the point home. This whole disaster began with her. The Duke insists, loud and proud, that this whole plan was Clee's idea from the very start, and it was all her. Then he starts remembering nearly 10 years back, when Cleo was totally hooked on the very first Duke. He blurts out that she's insisted on an arranged marriage, and it leaves Clee absolutely wrecked with mortification. He still remembers her making a childish promise. If trouble ever hit, she'd find her own marriage partner. Clee freezes in horror, palms slammed to her face, insisting she can't remember a single thing. The Duke, stunned to his core, then, with a heavy sigh, admits she might have just forgotten after her mother's death. Takumi asked in a hush if he meant their mother, and the Duke just sank into a sad nod to confirm it. Cleo leans in and whispers that she remembers absolutely nothing about her mother. Her father leans in and reassures her, saying it's totally understandable, because Tilla was still just a baby back then. The Duke's face twists darker as that brutal time slams back into his memory. He tells you his beloved wife came into the world with a frail constitution, always teetering on the edge. Somehow she clawed her way through the deadly birth of their first daughter, Clee. But the moment Tilla was born, her strength crumbled, then she slipped away just a short time later. The family was forced to swallow their grief alone, echoing through the massive, silent halls of their own home. The Duke can't forget it. His wife was utterly radiant, because bringing their 2 daughters into the world filled her with deep, lasting satisfaction. Clee leans in with a gentle voice and asks, "Mom, were you really happy with your life?" He clings to the memory of her smiling, so happy, so at peace, knowing she'd brought them both into the world. One lone, silent tear slips out of Cleo's eye as a beautiful, agonizing memory crashes over her. Clee's emotions crash over her. She starts crying, and Tilla can only stare, worried out of her mind. The Duke stares at his daughter, and heartbreak floods his chest because they're hurting together. Leo watches the emotional chaos spill out in the parlor from his spot across the room. Cleo choked up with sniffles, wiping her tears fast as she steeled herself to talk to her father again. She chokes out an apology for forgetting, knowing deep down there's nothing she can do to rewrite the past. He leans in and gently reassures her, "Don't worry, it's only your childhood fascination, connected to our ancestor." Cleo flashes him a radiant, grateful smile and thanks him for understanding. Sebastian calmly smirks and says, "Forget the marriage proposals, we can cancel them now." Cleo clenches her fists, and a brand new resolve hardens in her eyes. With all her heart, she makes it crystal clear. She's choosing her own partner. No one else gets a say. Tilla's eyes lit up. She shot her hand in the air and blurted to her father that she wants to do it too. The Duke sinks into stunned silence, absorbing his daughter's unified declaration like it just blew his world apart. He shuts his eyes for a heartbeat, weighing their fiery plea like it might burn an answer into his mind. He nods along, and just like that, both girls burst into triumphant joy. Sebastian steps in and declares he'll personally reach out to the suitors, then shut down their meetings for good. The Duke finally confesses he only did it to train Cleo about men, and now that lesson isn't needed anymore. Cleo finally cracks her father's real motive, and Tilla goes wild, celebrating their victory. The Duke leans in and tells Leo, "Don't worry about them, they're just acting silly." Cleo and Tilla whip their heads toward their father, thanking him like he'd finally cracked the code. Cleo steals a shy look at Takumi and, trembling, starts to spill the truth about how she really feels. The Duke locks onto her glance, and a sly, knowing grin snaps across his face. Sebastian barrels in and blurts, "It's nothing," so loud that Tilla just stares, totally lost. The Duke nods and, for now, chooses to shove that touchy topic out of the spotlight. He barges in and asks Sebastian if his room's ready, because he's dying to finally lie down and rest for a bit. Sebastian flashes a warm smile and assures him everything's been perfectly set up just for him. But just as the Duke is about to bolt out the door, Sebastian slams on the brakes and tells him, "Hold up, there's one last thing." He blurts that they've got to talk about Takumi's unreal gift right now. The Duke's smile vanished in an instant, and when the talk turned to business, seriousness slammed into his face. Takumi just watches, knowing the conversation has finally latched onto his secret power. The Duke nods and confirms it's weed cultivation as the gift, then demands they lay out every detail of the contract. Cleo can't contain her excitement as she tells her father that Takumi can grow all sorts of powerful, valuable herbs. She tells how he first forged Ramogi for Tilla, then went off script and started growing Ro from scratch. The Duke is absolutely stunned when he learns that he's the one who created the legendary Ro plant. He asks if she's talking about that top-shelf herb, and she nods, saying Takumi made it with effortless ease. Takumi's jaw drops when he sees the Duke hit the news about the Ro with a shockingly powerful reaction. Cleo flashes a proud grin and tells him he didn't stop at just that one. He brewed up tons of other useful herbs too. Sebastian tells him Takumi's always locked in, digging up new research and growing plants you've never even imagined before. He says he and Cleo both personally tested the herb, and the results hit hard. The Duke pauses, then realizes the weed cultivation gift is insanely useful. His eyes narrow like a blade, and he demands to know why all this conversation is happening in the first place. He can feel this story steering straight toward a major business pitch. Sebastian straight up confirms they're weighing a sales contract, because Takumi wants it too. He lays it out clearly. If the ducal house backs this play, the profits could be massive. The Duke locks his blazing eyes on Takumi and demands to know, does he really want this? He makes it crystal clear, no full consent, no contract, it's that simple. Takumi steels himself and prepares to deliver his brutally honest answer straight to the powerful Duke. He finally lays it out, "I don't want a prophet's title, I just want my gift to be used to help you." The Duke is completely stunned by the young man's raw, honest, and selfless words. Takumi locks eyes with him, jaw set tight, even though his nerves are still screaming inside. The Duke's stern expression cracks open, just a tiny, appreciative smile blooms across his face. Then boom, he bursts into a thunderous, big-hearted laugh that fills the whole room. Takumi can't believe it. He's staring at the Duke like, who does he think he is to talk to me that boldly? Seeing her father nod in approval, Cleo realizes this is her perfect opening, so she strikes now. The Duke steps up and officially announces they're striking a business contract with Takumi. He tells Sebastian to get the formal documents ready because Takumi's about to review them. Takumi beams with pure gratitude, thanking Eckenhart for the unbelievable chance he's been handed. The Duke grips his hand hard and welcomes him with open arms, like he's about to seal a deal that could change everything. Later that evening, Takumi ends up alone, sinking into thought as the whole day replays in his mind. He perches on the edge of his bed, and the crushing weight of his new reality finally settles in. He can't help but think Eckenhart is a real noble, pure grace on the outside, good in his bones. Leo pads right up to his master and nudges him with pure affection, begging for attention. Takumi grins and starts gently stroking his loyal partner's soft white fur. He grins and scratches the great wolf behind the ears, soaking up that peaceful, quiet moment like it's pure gold. His hand freezes mid-motion when he spots something stuck to Leo's fur. He steps in closer and tells Leo, "Man, I've gotten filthy from all this traveling." With a huge grin, he shouts that it's bath time, right as Leo starts whining in pure dismay. As he lounges with Leo, a polite knock hits his bedroom door, right on cue. Sebastian steps up and asks, "Got a second?" And Takumi waves it off, "Yeah, it's fine." The butler strides into the room, then snaps into a perfectly formal bow that screams respect. He asks if Takumi was playing with Leo, and Takumi fires back, "What do you need?" Sebastian slides over a crisp, formal document and tells him, "This is the contract." Takumi snatches the papers and stares at the fancy, unfamiliar script, curiosity sparking in his eyes. He can't stop wondering why he can always understand every language in this world, especially Japanese. Sebastian tells him to drop it for now. This is part of their business deal, and that's all that matters. He breaks it down. This document spells out every rule of their partnership for selling the herbs. Takumi leans in, reading every single detail like it matters. That's when he fully understands why those specifics are so crucial. Sebastian leans in and asks, "Got any questions or want to tweak anything?" Right then, click, the door swings open and the Duke strides in, shouting Takumi's name. He dips into a deep bow and the whole room freezes. He just needs to thank him again for saving his daughters. Takumi lunges in fast, shouting that Leo was the real hero who saved them first. In the grand bathhouse, Takumi nervously tries to explain that he accidentally healed Tilla. The Duke makes it crystal clear it changes nothing. He still saved her, and the gratitude in his chest is real. With a grave look, the Duke finally confesses there's another worry gnawing at him. He whips his gaze to the great wolf and asks straight up if Leo-sama is mad at him. Takumi can't believe it. He's left stunned, wondering why his usually good-natured partner would snap with anger. Right on cue, Leo slips up behind him, grinning ear to ear as he pants with pure, happy energy. The Duke clutches his chest like a weight just vanished, relieved beyond words that Leo isn't angry. Sebastian leans in and tells his lord, "I already promised you, no one will take offense." The Duke admits he had to make sure his own attitude never came off as disrespectful. He blurts out an apology for his weird behavior, but Takumi just beams and waves it all away. The Duke just stares on, his face blazing with gratitude and respect for that boy. After that amazing meal, the whole family gathers in the formal dining room, ready for whatever comes next. Sebastian leaned in and grilled Takumi. Had he finally gotten a chance to review that business contract? The Duke, perched at the head of the table, leans in and demands, "Are the contents acceptable?" Takumi clutches the document and asks, "Can I pester you with a few questions about the terms?" The Duke leans in, eyes sharp, and dares him to ask for anything he wants. While all that's happening, Leo and her familiar Sherry finally get to be happily pet right there in the background. After a few quick clarifications, the Duke leans in and asks, "So that's it, that's all you've got to ask?" He's blown away because it's obvious Takumi has read every single page and actually understood it. Takumi finally gets to the heart of it, saying the contract is so stacked in his favor it feels downright unfair. Klee beams with pride, telling everyone she and Sebastian hammered it out together, with his interests driving every decision. Sebastian points out that those generous terms are no accident. They're the payoff for the massive profit they're already counting on. The Duke lays it out flat. Selling herbs is their next big gamble, and he swears it's a guaranteed win. Takumi leans in, eyes sharp, and demands, "Is that the real reason you're being so generous?" The Duke flat out warns him that without their protection, every other noble would pounce and try to exploit him. Takumi takes it in, his eyes locked on the details as he feels the full weight of everything they just said. He rubs the back of his head and admits he never, ever thought the conditions would be this incredible. Then he fires off his announcement. He's got just one more condition, and it's his to call his own. Klee looks genuinely stunned, then tells you they can probably make a reasonable request work. Takumi shoots off a heartfelt, humble plea, begging to be allowed to stay in the mansion just a little longer. The Duke, Sebastian, and Klee freeze in absolute silence after his one simple wish leaves them completely speechless. The tense silence gets ripped apart when the Duke bursts into a booming, joy-filled laugh. Klee braces for impact, but Sebastian only grins and tells her, "That's totally Takumi." Duke Eckenhart loudly begs Takumi to stay, and Klee blurts out a fiery yes, so intense she wants him there forever. The Duke straight up tells Takumi he can stay with him, no fancy contract needed, no rules standing in the way. Takumi's heart gets overwhelmed by their kindness, and he blurts out, "Are you really sure I can stay with you?" Klee, Sebastian, and the Duke all practically cheered at once. "Of course you're welcome to stay." With their unconditional acceptance burning in his heart, Takumi finally offers his most sincere, heartfelt thanks. With a bold flourish of his pen, the business contract gets signed, locked in, and sealed for real. The deal is sealed at last, and Takumi tells a filthy Leo, straight up, it's bath time. The very next day, Takumi gets ready to put his weed-growing gift on display for Duke Eckenhart. In the courtyard, Sebastian strides up to Takumi and shoves a list of everything they asked for right into his hands. Takumi spots the papers instantly. There, the official order forms for the new medicinal herbs. The list lays out every rare, hard-to-find medicinal herb the ducal house is desperate to get their hands on. He can't believe it. One lone leaf from that rare row plant is worth a fortune. He realizes he has zero clue what the money even means, so he decides to grill Sebastian later about exactly how much he's worth. With the task already slipping into his hands so easily, Takumi leans in and asks if the order's herb amount is just small. Sebastian lays it all out, 10 rows of leaves first, then 20 of each for 8 other verb types. Then he leans in and warns Takumi to stay sharp, reminding him about that brutal collapse from burning himself out. Cleo nods and says, "We have to watch his condition, because we don't know his limits yet." She also notes that he hasn't mastered his strange gift yet. He's still digging into it, one discovery at a time. Takumi can't hide it. He's genuinely shaken by how much they care about his health and safety, above everything else. He leans in and thanks them with real sincerity for caring about his well-being so deeply. With confidence blazing in his eyes, he steps up and swears he's about to show them just how powerful his weed-growing skills really are. Duke Eckenhart leans in and tells Takumi he's betting everything on him, and Takumi snaps up the challenge with wild, eager confidence. He drops to his knees and hovers his hand over the earth, igniting the power of his gift. Right before his eyes, a massive, thriving row plant rockets out of the ground in an instant. Soon that whole patch of ground exploded into a thick, lush mix of herbs, one type after another. With the garden blooming around him out of sheer nothing, he flips open his book and studies everything like a master plan unfolding in real time. Duke Eckenhart freezes in total disbelief, eyes wide with shock, and something almost holy in his awe. Takumi lets out a tiny, awkward smile, like he can't believe he's just shown off that insane power. Sebastian kicks off his inventory check, firing the question, "Tell me the herbs on the order list are all grown right." Klee closes the distance to Takumi, her first worry screaming, "Are you okay, after all that exertion?" He flashes her a warm smile and tells her straight up that making all these herbs wasn't even a strain. The Duke mumbles under his breath, stunned by how weed cultivation is the kind of power that hits like lightning. He couldn't believe it, somehow, that insanely rare, wildly valuable row plant was created with shocking ease. Duke Eckenhart stared at the herbs in awe, already realizing this power could turn everything around for his family. He rose to his feet and gave Takumi a proper, formal thanks for that demonstration. Takumi grinned and admitted he felt pure joy, because his power could finally repay the people who'd been so kind to him. Sebastian strode up and, with a sharp nod, made it clear every single item on the order list had been crafted to perfection. The Duke flashed a grin, thanked Sebastian for the great news, and confirmed the harvest came in strong and successful. As Takumi started collecting the plants, the Duke couldn't help but stare, because why on earth was he doing the harvesting himself? Takumi pinched a leaf between his fingers, grinning as he said it was just way easier to do it that way. Sebastian then unveiled yet another mind-blowing side of the weed-growing gift. It didn't just grow plants, it forged them into their perfect peak condition, ready to be used. The Duke went completely still, staring in shock as he blurted, "Wait, that's even possible." The Duke, Takumi, and Sebastian settled down, right there among mountains of freshly harvested herbs. The Duke's smile vanished, and with a serious stare, he demanded to know if Takumi could wield a sword. Takumi finally caved and admitted that all he'd ever done was swing the sword around in the forest, no real skill at all. The Duke fell silent, eyes narrowing as his fingers dragged through his beard in deep thought. His eyes narrowed, and pure determination burned like a fuse. He leaned in and told Takumi he'd have to learn real self-defense, no excuses, just the method to protect himself. Klee clocked it instantly. Leo never left his side, and she couldn't help wondering why he needed that extra protection. The Duke didn't mince words. This new venture would lure in vicious troublemakers, and they'd come hunting Takumi. Takumi's eyes widened as he blurted, Wait, are you telling me that's really true? The Duke made it crystal clear. Everyone would scramble for the secret behind a business that's guaranteed to succeed. Sebastian warned them that even with all the caution in the world, the truth would still slip out eventually. Takumi couldn't believe people would go that far just to get their hands on some medicinal herbs. The Duke snapped him into place and made it crystal clear it was way more than that. He laid it out plain. Without medicine, countless people suffer every day, and that's why Takumi's ability is worth more than gold. Takumi swallowed hard, and the moment he realized he could forge cures and deadly poisons, he knew he'd instantly become a target. The Duke flat out told Takumi, "You've got to learn how to protect yourself, out there, not just inside the mansion." A razor-close shot zeroed in on the Duke's ruthless resolve. Takumi swallowed the truth and accepted that, sooner or later, he'd be ripped away from Leo. With fresh grit in his chest, he turned to Eckenhart and demanded, "Tell me, what do I do to learn how to use a weapon?" The Duke flashed a grin, jutted a finger at Takumi, and promised, straight up, that he'd personally take him under his wing and teach him the sword. Takumi froze in shock, staring up like, "Wait, is the mighty Duke Eckenhart himself actually going to be my teacher?" Cleo let out a heavy sigh, furious that her father's nasty habit of hunting promising talent had crawled back into her life. Then Sebastian exposed the Duke's real power. He was a top-tier swordsman, and Takumi couldn't even find the words. Duke Eckenhart bursts into a hearty laugh, basically saying the knight's captain was trained way too lightly. During a breather in training, Duke Eckenhart lays out his duties to Takumi and Tilla, right there in the panel. The Duke lays out why sword training matters, and a stunned Takumi can't believe what he's hearing. A tight close-up, Duke Eckenhart's hand clamps down on Takumi's shoulder, gripping like he's dead serious, and you can feel the resolve in every second. Panel. The Duke bursts with excitement, tells Kumi the shocking news that her training starts right now. Panel. Klee barrels in frantic, telling her father that Takumi just collapsed from sheer overexertion, right there, in front of everyone. Sebastian keeps Takumi close and tells the Duke straight up, "Let him rest today." Panel. The duel is about to kick off any moment, and a worried Clear reluctantly gives in. Panel 1. Duke Eckenhart locks eyes with Takumi, determination blazing, and slams the training plans for today, tomorrow. Panel. In his room, Takumi sits with Leo deep in thought, weighing the idea of learning how to use a sword. Panel. Takumi clenches his nerves, then nods and agrees to the Duke's plan while Cleo watches, panel after panel. Wayne Wahar. Takumi grins warmly, rubs Leo's snout, and promises with full heart that he'll do his absolute best. Panel. Sebastian raps hard on the door and blurts, "Mind if I come in?" to enter Takumi's room. Sebastian flashes a warm smile and tells Takumi he brought him something special, right here. A razor-sharp close-up of that short sword flashes on screen, and Takumi's face hardens as he finally recognizes it, panel after panel. Sebastian thrusts a clean, short sword into Takumi's hands, and Takumi's panel lights up with pure surprise. Sebastian flashes a mysterious gesture that something else is coming, and Takumi just stands there, fully baffled. Takumi snatched the tiny pouch, and the second he realized it was his payment, he understood the deal. Panel. A mountain of coins tumbles onto the table in a chaotic cascade, and Takumi's eyes shoot wide in shock. Takumi suddenly clocks what his new financial situation really means, and the panic hits in the very next panel. Takumi leaned in and demanded that formal Sebastian spell out how this world's money works. Panel. Sebastian grins as the memory hits him, Takumi's from another world, and then he gladly agrees, like this is exactly what he hoped for. Panel. Sebastian kicks off the lesson and points straight at the lowest value iron coin. A tight close-up zooms in, one lone, super detailed copper coin rests in a hand's grip. Sebastian crouches before the seated Takumi and lays out the currency system like it's a treasure map, flashing a gleaming silver coin as the panel fades. Takumi stares as the graphic flashes. 10 shiny silver coins match up to just one gold coin. Panel. Takumi jabs a finger at the coins on the table and fires off a question at Sebastian. Panel. Dialogue bubbles lay out why those shiny gold coins just don't cut it for everyday shopping, so keep watching. Panel. Takumi pinched his chin and started translating every coin into yen in his head. A tight close-up, Takumi's eyes blow wide as a shocking truth crashes into him. Panel. Takumi's eyes go wide, because as soon as the memory hits, he remembers how ridiculously valuable that raw herb is. That mountain of coins sitting on the table screams one thing, an absolutely massive fortune. Takumi's hands start to sweat as he replays Sebastian's words in his head, the ones about how the raw plant is worth its weight in gold. Sebastian leans in and tells Takumi exactly what it's going to cost to build a house in Raktos. Panel. Sebastian talks compensation for Takumi, but Takumi snaps back, saying the offer is already way more than he could ever deserve. With his very first earnings burning in his hand, Takumi demanded to know how much Sebastian's gifts from earlier had cost. Butler tells Takumi, don't stress over something this small, like it's no big deal at all. Takumi stands his ground, saying he has to repay that loan for his own peace of mind. Sebastian flashes a warm smile and praises the kid's grit and sense of honor like it's something truly rare. The butler slips in clothes and whispers the exact debt amount like it's a secret worth killing for. Once the work's done, Sebastian tips his hand in goodbye and vows he'll see him again at dinner. Later, Takumi finally sinks back into his room, and Leo, his massive, loyal companion, lies nearby like a guard dog at his side. He smirks with grim satisfaction, eyeing his high-grade herbs like they're a weapon that could crush anything. During dinner, a determined Tilla strides up to her father at the head of the table, fully composed and ready to make her move. She steps right up to him and dares to ask, "Can I start sword training too?" The Duke demands to hear her reasoning, and shocked Klee blurts out her sister's name like she just can't keep it in. Tilla admits straight to the heart that she feels she has to have a familiar of her own, no ifs, no buts. She blurts out, full of fire, that before she can do it, she has to forge herself into someone strong enough to fight. Klee gazes at her younger sister, and pure, deep love and worried devotion crushes across her face. She cups Tilla's tiny hands in her own and leans in, trying to talk her down. Klee tells them that getting a familiar isn't some quick, learn-to-fight shortcut. It's way more complicated than that. She can't believe it. Sherry becoming her familiar is a rare, once-in-a-lifetime twist that feels truly special. Tilla snaps back that it only worked because Takumi and Leo had her back the whole time. Her father demands a legit reason for her wish. No childish whim, no excuses. Tilla drops her gaze and admits she can't quite pin down the exact reason. She just can't put it into words. But she lifts her chin with fierce certainty, swearing that what she feels is unstoppable, real, powerful, and impossible to deny. Takumi realizes this isn't a simple wish. It's a burning, life-changing mission that demands everything from him. The Duke can't forget how his late wife's unstoppable spirit echoes through his daughter. Klee hears her younger sister speak, and suddenly her own deepest convictions hit her like a truth she can't ignore. The Duke rises to his feet and taunts Tilla, daring her to admit a monster would ever stick around after a week. He slams his hand down on the grand dining table, pounding the air to drive home just how powerful he is. Unshaken, Tilla fires back loud and clear, fully sure she gets every word he's trying to say. He warns her that training will hurt like hell, full of brutal hardship, but Tilla doesn't flinch as she grabs the challenge with both hands. The Duke lets out a heavy sigh and finally caves, admitting that mastering self-defense is a goal worth chasing. Tilla's face lights up like a sunrise the second her father finally gives in and agrees to teach her. Blazing with joy, she lunges into her father's arms and squeezes him in a grateful, tear-in-her-chest hug. Cleo watches the whole emotional mess unfold, smiling with fondness while a slightly exasperated sigh slips out anyway. Cleo leans in and gently tells her little sister, sword training matters, but don't let your studies slip away. Tilla gazed up at her older sister, and her eyes practically sparkled with unfiltered, bottomless adoration. The Duke beams and pats him on the head, then turns to Takumi and swears he'll give it his all. Soft rays of morning seep through the grand villa's windows, painting everything in a fresh glow. In his room, Takumi's massive partner, the silver Fenrir Leo, still snores soundly, buried in sleep. Takumi pops up from his bed with a jaw-cracking yawn, then stretches hard like he's finally ready to start the day. He mutters to himself, wondering if he accidentally woke up way too early this morning. A polite knock taps his door and a tiny voice asks, "Are you awake yet?" He swings the door open, and there's Tilla, young, wide-eyed, looking up at him and asking what she needs. She told me she'd woken up way too early, bored out of her mind, while her familiar, Sherry, was still curled up asleep. Takumi shoots his sleeping companion a knowing look, like he can already see the greatness resting on the floor. He blurts out an apology because Leo's asleep too, but Tilla grins and swears it's the best fun ever just watching him. She tiptoes closer, her hand trembling in the air just above the legendary wolf's silky silver fur. With a shaky, hushed voice, she admits she's totally nervous about today's training. Takumi tells her it's totally normal to feel that way, and then admits he's nervous too. Tilla shot her gaze upward, stunned to realize he was just as nervous as she was. He admits that getting formally taught the sword is a terrifying thought that makes his stomach drop. They exchange a small, knowing smile, and suddenly everything feels lighter, like they can breathe because they're facing it together. Leo finally stirs awake with a groggy groan, and Takumi swoops in to greet his partner with a bright, good morning. Duke Eckenhart storms into the doorway, declaring that it's time to kick off their training. The Duke slams his fist down and declares their training begins, just as the eager one finally begs, "Please, teach me his instruction." In the huge courtyard, the Duke steps up and declares their very first lesson, how to grip a sword the right way. With one sharp, practiced move, his gloved hand clamps down on the hilt like it means business. Takumi grips a massive, ornate sword, staring at it like, this has gotta be worth a fortune. Takumi steels his nerves for the lesson, and the moment it starts, it fires right back his determination. Her face tightened with pure focus, but even then her grip couldn't keep her sword steady. Her father softly repositions her hands, guiding her until she finally locks in the perfect grip and gets it right. He tells them, keep your eyes on the blade every single swing, know exactly which way it's facing. Takumi just stares in awe, completely frozen, watching the Duke unleash power so effortlessly it feels unreal. The Duke unleashes another brutal swing, and Tilla, hungry to prove herself, rushes to copy him. Tilla shoves all of Oliver's lean little strength into the swing, then throws in one massive, heart-stopping effort. The heavy sword yanks back with brutal force, blasting a violent jolt up her arms like a shockwave. She reels from the brutal hit, tears spilling down her face as she gasps, "It hurts." Duke Eckenhart kicks off the lesson, and Takumi, shaking like a leaf, stands in a nervous tiller, gripping two swords as the panel hits. Takumi flashes a determined, blazing grin. He's locked in and ready to rip into his training panel. The Duke snaps the action to a halt as Takumi and Tilla wheeze, utterly drained after all that brutal swinging through the panels. The Duke watches them closely and realizes, with a sharp jolt, that both of them are still fresh out of sword lessons. A tight close-up hits, those Duke eyes lock in, sharp and serious, judging every ounce of their strength like a storm is coming. The Duke slams his fist down and declares they're starting with basic training, hard reps, pure strength, then the scene cuts to the next panel. Tiller and Takumi lean in as Urinal asks what kind of training they'll be doing in Pinahui, and the whole thing feels like it's about to kick off. An exterior shot of the villa rolls in as the narration cranks up, setting the scene for their brutal training panel. The Duke leans in, watching Takumi and Tilla struggle to grind out push-ups. Takumi and Tilla cranked out sit-ups like their lives depended on it, their faces twisted with exhaustion from the grind panel. Till and Duke Eckenhart sprint off as Takumi gasps for breath after training panel. Totally spent, Takumi and Tilla crumple to the ground as the Duke stares them down, cut to the panel. A tight close-up on Takumi's eye as a sudden, brilliant idea ignites in his mind. Snap, cut to the next panel. Takumi strides up to Duke Eckenhart and blurts out his request, ripping their training break wide open panel. The Duke nods and agrees to Takumi's request, and Takumi shoots him a grateful smile panel. Takumi drops to his knees, slams his palm to the ground, and calls his gift into action panel. Tilla tilts her head, curious about the herb, and Takumi leans in to explain how it crushes fatigue panel. Duke Eckenhart and Tilla recoil and discuss the moment they taste the bitter herb panel. The Duke and Tilla slam the herb with disgust, because that bitter taste is brutal. Tilla's eyes widen, confusion hits first, then she starts sweating as she realizes something strange is creeping in panel. Tilla's eyes flare wide with pure, sparkling awe as she finally feels the herb hit with terrifying power. Tilla's jaw drops in pure shock, then she catches her breath and feels light as a feather, ready to charge back into training. Duke Eckenhart flashes a grin and says they can crank training up even more Peneline. Takumi and Tilla stare in pure horror as they finally clock the Duke's brutal new plan unfolding right before their eyes. The Revolt Villa cranks their training up to insane levels, and you can practically feel it in the panel. A few days pass, then a hand drops onto the ground, its owner wheezing and panting like they've been hunted panel. Cleo flashes a warm smile and hands an exhausted Takumi a towel during their break panel herm. Takumi, drenched in sweat and worn out, lifts his eyes when Cleo leans in and asks if he's okay panel. Up above, Takumi slumps onto the ground, utterly drained, and shoots Cleo a grateful look for showing she cared. Takumi sits there, wiping the sweat off his face, then flashes Cleo a shaky, apologetic smile panel. A tight close-up catches Clee's face as she watches everything unfold with a soft, gentle calm panel. Clee sits with her hands clasped in her lap, voice steady as she spills her thoughts panel. Takumi stares at him, clear as day, but the confusion hits hard, and even speaking feels like a risk. Cleo leans in hard, telling Takumi she couldn't stop her father's training. Cleo desperately wishes Takumi had guards, because nobody should have to choke down that kind of hardship alone. She explains that a guard will keep him safe, no matter whether Leo shows up or not. Her wide, earnest eyes scream how real her concern for him is. Takumi stares at her, eyes narrowing as she weighs every word, then she quietly speaks her name like it matters. He clocks her kindness right away and realizes she's not judging him, she's just terrified for his safety. With quiet grit, he flat out tells them he's got zero plans to stop training. He wrestles inside his head, desperately searching for the right words to finally say what he truly feels. He locks eyes with her again, and an earnest look spreads across his face as he finally starts explaining himself. He stands there, stone-cold certain he's not giving up until he masters the sword. He tells them that leaning on others would crush them with his weight, and he can't stand how they only protect him instead of seeing him carry his own fight. She insisted it's no trouble at all, being protected by the great Leo is a real honor. She hits him with the truth. Leo is, hands down, the strongest monster of them all. He goes quiet for a beat, hunts for the right words, and then spills a deeply personal memory. He leans in and asks if she remembers him telling her that his partner used to be tiny. She flashes back to their earlier talk, eyes widening as the truth slams into her like a lightning bolt. Before he arrived here, he told me the truth. Back in his old world, he was the one who protected his tiny little dog with his whole life. A flashback catches tiny Leo. Just his small presence is all Takumi needs to feel happiness flood his chest. With a warm smile, he finally nods, because right then, it's clear they've been guarding each other all along. He shuts his eyes tight, and a warm, nostalgic smile blooms across his face as he vanishes into the memory. Cleo can't help but notice, every time he talks about Leo, that gentle look just lights up on his face. Flustered to the bone, he snaps that he can't call himself a real partner if he's always being kept safe. He can't just call Leo like he's a familiar. He isn't used to commanding someone like that. He needs to be strong enough, at the very least, to shield himself from danger. He panics, practically begging her to keep her mouth shut and not to spill to her father what's really driving him to train. He leans in close, then asks her to keep every word just between them. No one else gets to know. The thought of a secret between them hits her like lightning, and she instantly blushes and can barely breathe. While she steams with embarrassment, a baffled Takumi blurts out, "Hey, are you okay?" Still recovering, she admits she finally understands his feelings and vows to be his rock from here on out. Tilla and the Duke declared that his brief training break was officially over. Takumi whirls around and yells to them that he's already heading their way. Towel slung over his shoulder, he tells them straight up he's heading back. Inspired by him, Cleo pledges to push herself even harder for her own sake and for her family's. With a bright grin, he waves her off and thanks her for the towel, then jogs out to train. Cleo beams with her eyes shut, smiling like the sun, and gives a loud, cheerful yes. Takumi whips around and strides off, leaving Cleo behind as he crosses the huge, sun-blasted courtyard. He tightens his grip on a towel in his fist, and that calm, unshakable resolve hardens across his face. He shot one last glance back and swore to himself he'd give it everything he had. A few days later, Duke Eckenhart bursts onto the scene and declares a sudden, jaw-dropping mock battle. Sebastian presses them on how they're going to run the duel, while Cleo watches, dread written all over her face. The Duke lays it out, this is a sword match, and he's stepping in to swing for himself. Tilo and Takumi get jolted when they realize this isn't a practice run, it's a real combat-style test. Cleo panics, but her father brushes it off, claiming he's only pushing Takumi to prove how much he's grown. The Duke snaps into position, staring down Takumi and daring him to make the first move. Takumi steps up to the challenge, nodding hard as he agrees to bring his full power and face his teacher head-on. He shuts his eyes tight and dials into his training, reliving every single practice swing he's thrown until it all clicks. The Duke watches his student grow sharper and sharper, but right now, it still isn't cutting it. With a lazy, effortless parry, the Duke swats Takumi's strike aside, and Takumi stumbles as if his legs just gave up. Not nearly good enough, the Duke growls, while Takumi snaps and curses his own weakness. Takumi's eyes blow wide with pure shock as his opponent's blade slices past his guard. The Duke snaps a warning. If he lets his sword slip, he'll be left totally defenseless. With that, the Duke snaps into position, ready to unleash the final, game-ending strike. He pins Takumi by the throat with the flat of his training sword, then the match is over. The Duke straight up declares that, for all intents and purposes, Takumi is dead, once and for all. Wide-eyed and drenched in sweat, Takumi bows hard to his teacher, thanking him for that brutal lesson that hurt like hell, but mattered. Suddenly, a furious roar tears through the air as Leo hurls himself right between the two men. Takumi jolts into panic and screams his partner's name, his face frozen in pure, stunned shock. The Duke stammered out Leo's name, and one glance at the legendary beast shattered his composure instantly. Leo glares at the Duke like pure rage could tear the world apart, a deep growl rolling out of his chest. The Duke jolts in shock, realizing the wolf truly believed its master was getting attacked. Takumi slams into Leo with desperate shouts, trying to yank him out of his protective fury before it consumes everything. He insists it was just training, but then drops the bomb. The Duke is in real danger right now. He reassures Leo that losing is only natural for now, because he's still too weak to be taking wins yet. The Duke stands there, still rattled, as Leo finally settles down and stares at Takumi, completely confused. Takumi rushes to the Duke, throws out a heartfelt apology, and asks if he's okay after that sudden scare. He insists it's just a misunderstanding, right as Leo affectionately nudges her cheek and Tilla finally exhales, all that tension melting away. The Duke drops to one knee and bows deep to Leo, begging for forgiveness. A bright, cheerful voice yells Takumi, and he whips around in pure surprise. Klee admits that Leo didn't do anything. He was just rocked with pure shock the moment he spotted that sword hanging near her father. Sebastian leans in, eyes narrowing. Could this be the legendary silver Fenrir that's supposed to show up after the win? A soft, knowing smile spreads across Takumi's face as he finally clocks what his partner is truly feeling. He tells Leo, "I only tried to help," then blurts out an apology, begging him not to think it was meant to scare him. With a soft pat, he thanks his loyal partner, whose steady concern never wavers. Steel shrieks through the air as a fresh training sword gets blasted straight back into the chaos. Across the yard, it all speeds to a close. His training session with her father is finally over. Tilla is wiped out but won't budge. Sweat beads down her face as she digs in and holds her ground. The Duke slams her training to a stop and demands one thing, pure, overflowing gratitude right down to her bones. His grip clamps down on his sword, and in that silence, he silently bows to her unshakable determination. The Duke watches as Takumi rushes in to congratulate Tilla right after she finishes her training. Panel. The Duke leans in and tells Claire, "You're going back to the capital for business," and the next panel hits like a countdown. The Duke barks a hard, no-nonsense order at Takumi and Tilla, demanding they lock in for training.